Sergeant Bo Bergdahl is back at work and still a member of the U.S. military. The reaction from both sides has been swift and in some cases a bit confused. So what is life like for him now? And more importantly, what does his future hold? Edward Snowden has shifted his circus act now to the United Kingdom, taking their surveillance to task. The Brits aren't happy. We'll talk with a rep from the company that vetted Snowden for his job at the CIA. And there are new questions to be asked about Israel's offensive against Hamas. They are indeed seeking to buckle a terrorist organization, but the collateral damage of dead civilians must be properly addressed. We address it all and more as we question everything for Wednesday, July 16th, 2014. And while we seek answers to the immigration crisis, the Bergdahl investigation, the new war in the Middle East, and what America should be doing to strengthen its reputation around the world, we are long past the time to look within our borders and ask a few very serious and timely questions. That hits the docket later during my commentary and telling it like it is. Let's begin this first hour with John Bachman in this edition of Newsmax Now.
Thank you for that, Ed. The feds are expanding protections for pregnant workers today. The new guidelines from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission say that any form of backlash against pregnant workers is a form of sexual discrimination and, in fact, illegal. However, some are concerned that these new laws don't do enough to encourage and protect businesses. As a result, Nebraska Republican Senator Deb Fischer is introducing a family leave bill that gives tax breaks to employers who voluntarily offer paid leave.
I've offered an amendment the 4 Republican women have come together on that reinforces our current law, that has that non-retaliation clause in it.
Well, the Republican senator is also introducing legislation to help both men along with women.
This morning I also am dropping in a bill to help men and women start their own new businesses. They hold that American dream. They want to start their own businesses.
We've talked about this before. Republicans fighting back against another war on women led by Democrats. Senator Fischer here wants to increase the amount small businesses are receiving from the Small Business Administration. Right now it's $50,000. She wants to up that to $100,000 to deal with this issue. The Republican senator says it will help families cover the first year's costs of running their own businesses. Meantime, Federal Reserve Chairwoman Janet Yellen told a Senate committee yesterday that there is too much of a premium in some sectors or financial markets.
Valuations appear stretched, and issuance has been brisk.
Well, Yellen was specifically referring to social media and biotechnology firms. As one can imagine, not everyone is happy with her comments. Take a listen to this.
Let's get one thing real clear. I don't like it when Fed chiefs address the stock market with gratuitous throwaway comments, as they did today.
We have CNBC's Jim Cramer reacting. A lot of pressure on the Fed and Janet Yellen right now, not just about her comments yesterday. Cramer's response came after financial analysts say tech stocks fell after the chairwoman's comments. Still, Dow Jones doing pretty good. Meantime, Google is teaming up with a pharmaceutical giant, Novartis, to create a small contact lens. The latest high-tech vision will monitor blood sugar levels for diabetics. Researchers say the contact lens will work the same way the lenses work on digital cameras. Developers say this new device may also correct some vision, one would hope. This is the latest in medical technologies being developed to monitor health in the 21st century. The two companies do not disclose financial information surrounding the project. Perhaps this is proof the Federal Reserve Chairwoman was wrong in saying that biotechnology firms are, quote, stretched. More news ahead in 30 minutes. Now here's Ed.
The Army says Bergdahl has completed his 6-week so-called reintegration process and is now back to regular active duty at Joint Base San Antonio, Fort Sam Houston, where he's been recovering. The specifics of his day-to-day duties have not been disclosed.
On the surface, there are obvious questions about where Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl goes from here and where the investigation into his missing years will take us. But there are deeper questions about his reintegration into the military and how the Army is handling what still could be an explosive situation depending on what these various investigations reveal. Let's welcome into MidPoint a combat veteran who served in the U.S. Army for 8 years, serving in combat during deployments to Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom and Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom. Now a syndicated writer and commentator. Pleasure to welcome back Amber Barno. Amber, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Amber, from your brief experience and what you know how the military works, when they say that Bo Bergdahl is back on active duty, what precisely does that mean? Because there are some people saying it doesn't exactly mean what some people are taking it to mean.
Yeah, well, I think that 6 weeks integration process that he had and has now been returned to active duty was a little bit short. After 5 years in captivity with the Taliban or the Haqqani network, it seems a little bit short, but I do agree that most people are taking it a little bit to the extreme as far as Bergdahl being put back on active duty. It's more of a administrative protocol. They have to put him back on active duty. They're not sending him back to the front lines. They're sticking him at a desk job. I think that the Army stretched it a little bit by saying that he was just a normal soldier now, but I also know what they're doing. They're attempting to put him back into the Army culture, the Army lifestyle. It's very structured. You have to be places at certain times, wake up early in the morning, work all day long. They tell you where to go, who you're talking to, etc. It's a very structured lifestyle. So I think in that aspect, that is what they're attempting to do, sort of to continue the reintegration process. But it also is the step needed in order to continue with the investigation as far as desertion goes and possibly charge him.
Let's talk about that right now, because putting him back and reinserting him into military life before the investigation, I think what's happened here, there's a lot of people wondering why the investigation did not immediately move forward as soon as he was out of the hospital before he gets back in working with other soldiers. Can you give us any sort of insight as to how the military works in that area? And perhaps, is this abnormal? Is this something that would normally happen for somebody in this sort of a situation?
Well, I think that they just made his reintegration and mental and physical health the priority. And because they don't want a skewed investigation. They don't want someone that's, like when they first got him, he wasn't even speaking English. So they want to make sure he's at least competent enough to give them information that's accurate to be used for the investigation and potential trial if there is one. So I think they needed to get him back, get him healthy, get him administratively and sort of the legal protocol in order before they could move forward.
When you think about the years that he spent away from the United States, and you said, of course, he didn't speak English when he came back, isn't there still a tremendous interest here and concern about his mental health and whether or not he will really be able to reintegrate and whether or not he's going to be able to answer any questions, because certainly they want to get information from him. But I would imagine that after someone spends that much time in the hands of the enemy, we're not talking just a few weeks here. This could take years for psychologists to dig into and actually get some truth.
Yeah, and that's why I said in the beginning that the 6-week reintegration process seems a little bit short. And I've got to tell you, morale in the office space at Fort Sam Houston, where Bergdahl is working, is probably not the highest right now. I think that's got to be putting some of those soldiers in a little bit of an uncomfortable situation. I think that's got to be very awkward to be working side by side with him at Fort Sam Houston. But only time will tell. And he recently lawyered up yesterday. He has a new lawyer, a military expert at Yale, who teaches at Yale, which I thought was an interesting twist as well in terms of him getting a civilian lawyer.
I had a chance to speak to some military friends of mine who have been in the military for varying amounts of years, from decades to just a couple of years. And some of them brought forth a point that I thought was interesting. They said perhaps what's going on here, and again, this is all just supposition because we're not really there, but perhaps the military is trying to bring him back in slowly because they believe that they can get really valuable information from him, that he can bring forth something. He suddenly becomes a valuable asset to them in learning more about his captors. Do you think that's really what's going on here? Would you surmise that at least they would like that to be the case?
I do. I think the Army knows what they're doing here. I think there's very valuable information to be gained from Bergdahl and his 5-year experience in Afghanistan. The Army is doing the steps in place that's going to best benefit the Army, the military, and our country. I think there's lots of information to be gained from questioning and talking to Bergdahl and understanding what happened from the get-go all the way to his trade. So I do trust the Army with this process. I do.
What do you think about your personal opinion of the fact that he has not met with his parents and has not spoken to them since he returned to the United States?
Well, I think that is extremely odd. I know after reading up on other hostage or captured situations, or where they've been held, not necessarily, he wasn't captured, but he was held in captivity for 5 years. That's usually the first thing that people do, is they want to talk with their family. So I can't imagine what is going on as to, I don't know what happened before, during. Obviously, I think that speaks a little bit to his mental health as well, but I have no idea why he's not talking to his parents.
Here's an interesting quote that we got from the mother of fallen Second Lieutenant Darren Andrews, and I'm going to put it up here for the folks at home to see as well. The Pentagon claims that there have been no deaths directly related to the abduction of Sergeant Bergdahl, and here is the mother. This is another attempt to give credibility to a deserter to protect the decision to free 5 extremely dangerous Taliban. In the weeks that have gone by now, you certainly talked to a lot of your friends in the military. You've been there. You know what goes on. Is there still this grudge that's being held, and is there still anger that lives in the hearts and minds of a lot of members of the military here, wondering what really is going on here and why this happened in the first place?
Yes, nearly everyone that I talk to that's still active duty or former military is very upset over this entire Bergdahl situation. And that's something that I'd like to bring light to. Since this week, when the Army announced that he's back on active duty, this is detracting from the real problem, which is the Obama administration trading top 5 level Taliban commanders back into the world, who are going to plot attacks against Western societies in the United States. The Bergdahl situation, it happened. Yes, he needed to be rescued. He did not need to be traded for 5 terrorists. That's still unbelievable to me that the decision, the inept decision, was made to make that trade. It makes no sense, and the U.S. will pay the price for that in the future.
What about the belief from some that perhaps the information they get back from Bergdahl will be worth the 5 Taliban that they released, that they'll be able to actually get some really usable intelligence that may save lives?
No, absolutely not. I think that there probably could have been a rescue. There could have been other ways, I think, to get Bergdahl back without the release of those 5 level Taliban. That was a quick trade in terms of Obama not wanting to leave Afghanistan potentially with a prisoner of war, as he was being called back then. It was to me, a political decision. It took 10 years to find Osama bin Laden. It didn't take 5 years to find Bergdahl.
I have about a minute or so left here, and on a side note, you have been in Afghanistan, you have been in Iraq. There are constant discussions here in America about one political party having a war on women. You've been in the Middle East, and you have seen what a real war on women is, haven't you?
I have, and I actually just recently spoke on this last week. I actually would refuse to comment on the war on women if it wasn't being used by the left so poorly against, generalizing women as a whole. There is no war on women in America. It doesn't exist. There is a real war on women, and that exists all around the world. You see it in the Middle East. I saw it in Iraq and Afghanistan when I was over there on my deployments. The oppression of women is real there. They have no freedoms. They have no liberties. They have no voice. They have no freedom of expression or to speak out against what's going on against them. And if they do, they're retaliated against. We saw what happened with the young girl who was shot by the Taliban after blogging about girls' rights for education. That is the real war on women. American women have every single freedom and liberty and choice and possibility that they could ever want for. And it's absolutely it's degrading to me as a woman that certain people in this country are using that as a ploy to exploit women.
And we will have to stop it there. Amber Barno, very well said. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll do it again.
Thank you.
All right, next up, is it past time for Israel to pull back on their latest Hamas offensive as civilians pay the ultimate price. The panel weighs in. You will too, as MidPoint continues.
Hi, I'm Jean, and this is my one and only Henry. We just love scouring flea markets for special treasures. But with my type 2 diabetes, we now spend all the time at the pharmacy. With Medcare, I don't have to. They deliver everything I need right to my door with free shipping. Plus, Medcare takes private policies, Medicaid, even my Medicare. Sleep apnea machines, nebulizers. Medcare has all the finest medical supplies. The best part, Medcare saves us money. Medcare allows us the time to do the things we love. Medcare, we deliver a better life. Smile.
No matter how well you provide for your family today, if you don't have life insurance, their future may be at risk. Think about what would happen if you were gone. Would they struggle to pay the bills and face an uncertain future? They don't have to. You can help guarantee those you love $200,000, $500,000, $750,000 or more with life insurance through AIG Direct. We'll help you get more for your money, up to 70% more. Just look, less than $14 a month buys a 40-year-old man a $250,000 term life policy. That's up to 3 times what you can get from other companies for the same price. No wonder millions of people rely on AIG companies. The call is free, the quote is free, and there's no obligation. Make the future more secure for those you love. Call now so you can sleep better at night.
For a free quote, call 1-800-558-5246 or visit AIGdirect.com.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. With one phone call, you'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information. It's a free service, so call now.
Call today, 800-263-4151.
Now on Newsmax TV, Mitt Romney for president again? Pundits say he could be the surprise comeback candidate for 2016. Watch The Malsberg Show on Newsmax TV. Go now to Newsmax TV.
Yes, there's a moral problem, but I don't have a moral answer to it. And the only thing I can believe, is, well, the situation in the Middle East has changed as far as the West Bank is concerned. They have a real and a serious leader who is ready for peace, and I do believe we can make peace with him, in spite of the skirmishes and here and there. And I think Gaza doesn't have a choice but to go for peace. Nobody will feed them for just shooting rockets.
There is no let-up in the explosive pounding being exchanged between Israel and Palestine. The Egyptian suggested ceasefire has failed without so much as a whimper. And while the Iron Dome defense system has saved countless lives, there is a disproportionate number of Palestinian casualties, leaving some to wonder if Israel needs to pull back or change their plan in order to save innocent lives. All part of this discussion as we welcome into MidPoint Editor-in-Chief of The Levant, a website dedicated to covering news from the Middle East in depth, promising to deliver coverage that is unapologetic and free from bias, Associate Director of the Beirut Center for Middle East Studies and political analyst for the Middle East, Catherine Shackdam. Also welcome the author of Making David into Goliath, How the World Turned Against Israel, and a fellow at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies, Joshua Moravchik. Thank you so much for joining us both.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Let me begin the conversation right now by letting you both hear a piece of sound. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was on The Daily Show last night with Jon Stewart. She expressed sympathy for the Gazans trapped by the choices of their leadership, but also said that Israel must maintain its right to fire back against militants launching rockets. Here it is.
And, you know, the Israelis are absolutely right in saying that they can't just sit there and let rockets rain down. The Hamas leadership now feels somewhat trapped themselves because they had an ally with the Muslim Brotherhood. I negotiated the ceasefire with Morsi, and Morsi was able to convince the Hamas groups to abide by it. He's gone, and the new regime in Cairo sees Hamas as a danger to them.
All right, Catherine, ladies first. Does the former Secretary of State have it correctly?
I would say that she has a point in saying that the Egyptian government right now is not keen on having the Hamas being having any kind of leadership in Gaza. But what I would like to say in reference to the missiles and all the violence that has been going on, that you cannot compare the rockets that the Hamas is firing at Israel. And even though I'm not justifying or even condoning what they're doing, you cannot compare the two. I mean, they have rockets that do not have any kind of long range, or they don't have any. They don't have technology. So it's basically comparing Indians and cowboys. You have people with arrows and bows, faced with people with cannons and guns.
Well, but
So
Catherine, let me just interrupt for a moment if I can. Are not rockets that kill, no matter what they do or where they come from?
I agree that they did kill one. I think it's there is one death has been reported today in Israel, and of course it's never justifiable to kill someone. But allow me to say that what Israel has done onto Gaza is not justifiable either. When you see that countless people have died, I think that the last death toll count is the tally is about 213, I believe. When we know that 70%, according to the UN, are women and children, and that 80%, according to the Gaza activists on the ground, right activists on the ground, they're all civilians. The great majority are civilians. So you basically, Israel is actually saying that it is okay to target civilians because they're acting in self-defense. And even though I can understand that no country should be made to suffer any sort of attack.
Okay, let me stop you there for a moment. Let me give Joshua a chance here. Joshua, let me bring you into this here, because certainly we have now your response to this, and then there is also a response here because there are reports indicating that Hamas basically puts its own people in harm's way. They use them as human shields. So how does that then enter into the equation of the Israelis being criticized by many for killing civilians?
Well, the simple fact is it's perfectly true that there's a great disparity in the number of casualties, but there are reasons for that disparity that go way beyond the fact that Israel does have more firepower at its command than Hamas. The largest reason for that is that Israel tries to protect its people. It spends billions of dollars both on this Iron Dome anti-missile system that you've been reading about, and also just on conventional civil defense. Every Israeli has a shelter available, and they run to them constantly during these rocket barrages. Hamas does nothing, does plenty to protect its top leadership, who hide in fortified bunkers deep beneath the ground, but they do nothing to protect their citizens. In fact, they've issued orders to the people to stay in their buildings that are going to be bombed, even when Israel has warned them in advance to get out, because Hamas wants to create martyrs for its political agenda of building pressure on Israel. And of course, they have a slogan, Hamas does, which says, "You love life and we love death." And that's precisely what they're acting on. They're deliberately trying to increase the amount of death on both sides, and Israel is trying to protect its own citizens and also minimize the number of civilian casualties on the other side while it strikes at military targets.
Catherine, is it not true that it is very difficult to feel sorry for the Palestinian people? You certainly can feel sorry for the fact that women and children are dying, but when their military leadership tells them to stand in harm's way and they have that sort of a mantra for their own people, isn't it very difficult then to criticize the Israelis for what they're doing?
Well, actually, I don't quite agree with that statement, because you basically, and this is the kind of very dangerous narrative that has been going on for quite some time. This is the type of thing that, the Israeli media has been running. It's actually quite racist and biased to say that, Palestinian people would willingly put their women and children in harm's way, for the sake of martyrdom. That's completely out of order. And I don't actually accept that as a valid argument. Because, to be quite honest with you, it's basically you're trying to dehumanize Palestinian people. This is something that has been going on for decades.
I don't think we're trying to, one moment please, I don't think we're trying to dehumanize, please don't understand it that way. We're not trying to dehumanize the Palestinian people. I think what we and others are pointing out here is the military action and what they are demanding of their people.
They actually, this is something that is not true. You know, the Hamas is actually, I agree with you when you say that, you know, they are pushing for martyrdom, and they are telling their people that whenever they're fighting for their country, it does equate to martyrdom, and I agree in that sense. But they never ever called on women and children to act as, you know, as human shield. That's
simply not true.
Okay, if you would, okay.
That's something the Israeli has been running for quite some time, because they are trying to prove that the Palestinians are not, you know, are actually, you know, they have a reason and a justification when targeting civilian population.
Okay, I have about 2 minutes left. Let me interrupt you for a moment. Joshua, I believe you wanted to answer back. Excuse me, one moment. Let me just get Joshua to answer back, please.
Catherine, this is cheap demagoguery on your part, because I didn't say this was what the Palestinians per se are doing. I said it's what the Hamas leadership is doing, and that's clearly documented. There was an order given by the Interior Minister of Gaza. It's available online. It's a public document. It was issued in Arabic. It's been translated into English. Any viewer can go and find it, in which Israel has been giving advance warning to people to get out of buildings that it plans to strike because there are military facilities there. And there was this document issued by the Interior Minister of Hamas calling on the Gazans not to ignore these warnings and to stay in the buildings.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you there for a moment. We only have a minute left, and I want to get a final thought in here. Catherine, is it simply not time for the Hamas military to stop firing?
No, what I would say would be, yes, I agree that it would be time for both sides to stop firing. But what I would like to say, so how can you ever justify, you know, targeting disabled centers or schools or hospitals, you know, and you can't expect people, you have a 3-minute warning. Where are they supposed to go? Jon Stewart made a very valid point, you know, in his last show, when he said that, you know, are they meant to swim for it? Where do you want them to go? There is nowhere to go. They are under siege. You're asking people to run away from bombing when there's nowhere to go.
Got it. Joshua, your answer then, please, 30 seconds.
Well, Egypt yesterday proposed a ceasefire. Israel not only accepted the ceasefire, but it immediately initiated a unilateral ceasefire for 6 hours. Hamas said, to heck with you, we don't want a ceasefire. We want to keep shooting at, because we're trying to kill Israelis, and we don't mind if our people get killed. And they rejected it. So that's why the fighting is going on. It doesn't make any sense to blame both sides.
Catherine Shakdam, Joshua Moravchik, I want to thank you both for a very logical conversation here and for basically stating your points of view on this. We will have you back again. We will continue to follow this story. Again, we thank you both very much.
You're welcome.
Proves again that you can have a logical discourse on this, but certainly this is something that has passions inflamed everywhere around the world. Coming up next, Republicans are taking what they believe is a necessary cutting tool to the president's border funding request, and a report predicting the federal deficit is not something the administration and other politicians hope you ever see or pay attention to. That will change when we look to the front page of the Mothership website right here on MidPoint.
Pat Boone here with a word about bank safety. Do you think your money is safe in the bank? Don't bank on it. A generation ago, bank accounts felt secure and they paid interest. This encouraged the virtue of thrift and saving. But today, bank accounts pay virtually nothing, and they've shifted from low risk to high risk. For example, did you know your money deposited in most U.S. banks could be subject to limited withdrawal and even confiscation? Oh yes, and that's just the first of 19 risks explained in a new white paper entitled Don't Bank on It. You still think your bank deposits are safe? You better get this vital new Don't Bank on It white paper now. Call the number on the screen or visit SwissAmerica.com, the gold standard. Learn how simple it is to become your own banker today.
When Bob got into the accident, I was terrified. His injuries were so severe, but once we knew he was going to be okay, what then?
I couldn't go back to work for a long time, and we got way behind on our bills.
We had hired an attorney, but when our case kept dragging on, we didn't know how we were going to get by. Thankfully, our attorney knew about Oasis Legal Finance.
Oasis looked at our case and got us the money the very next day.
What a relief it was. We didn't have to wait until our case settled, and the money from Oasis helped us when we needed it most.
At first I wasn't so sure. What if we lost the case? How would we be able to pay back Oasis? But then I found out if we did lose, we wouldn't have to pay them back. So there was no risk in doing it. No risk.
If you were involved in an accident and hired an attorney to fight for the compensation you deserve but need money now before your case settles, then call Oasis today. Oasis has given millions of dollars to people like you who need money fast while waiting for their case to settle. There's no risk, so call now.
I was hurt badly in a car accident just after my wife gave birth. We were counting on the cash from my lawsuit to get caught up, but the case took forever.
Honestly, we didn't know what we were gonna do. Then we saw an Oasis TV commercial and called. We were approved and got money from Oasis the next day.
Not in a week, the very next day.
I was hurt at work and filed a workers' comp claim. I called Oasis and they gave me the cash I needed. Unfortunately, I ended up losing my case, but Oasis let us keep the money. They kept their promise, and we didn't need to pay them back.
There are no out-of-pocket costs and no payments until your case is settled. If you lose your case, you don't have to repay Oasis. There's no risk. Call Oasis now to see how much money you can get before your case settles.
Call now, 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184.
Hello, I'm John Bachman. This is your Newsmax Now update. And of course, you might not be familiar with all the valid forms of ID that can be used for domestic air travel, but you also probably don't work for the TSA either. And today, a TSA officer is under a lot of scrutiny because he apparently did not know the District of Columbia, aka Washington, D.C., issues driver's licenses.
I gave the TSA agent my D.C. driver's license. After looking at it for a few seconds, he demanded a passport. I didn't have my passport, so I asked, why did he need it? He said he didn't recognize my ID. Now, at that point, I was a little confused, starting to realize what was going on, and I said, do you not know what the District of Columbia is? Washington, D.C. After some back and forth, it became clear he didn't. I eventually made it through security and told his supervisor.
Well, that right there is TV reporter Justin Gray telling the audience about what happened to him personally. Pro tip, though, if you work for the TSA and you're going to do something like this, don't do it to a reporter because then it's going to spread like a virus. Critics of the TSA, including yours truly, say this illustrates how deep the problems are at airport security facilities across the country. A lot of other examples of embarrassing situations out there, too. Meantime, a prominent immigration activist and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Jose Antonio Vargas was detained by Border Patrol on Tuesday at a South Texas airport. Vargas has lived in the U.S. for years without legal documentation. He was taken into custody after being stopped going through airport security in Texas. Vargas was later released with a notice to appear before an immigration judge that, according to the Department of Homeland Security, he was in Texas to be part of a vigil to highlight the plight of unaccompanied immigrant children coming into the U.S. every single day. We're back with more news. I'm John Bachman. Now over to Ed Berliner.
All right, John, the governor who has taken a hard stand against illegal immigrants coming to his state, the CBO numbers that will scare just about everybody, and what will likely happen to the president's request for nearly $4 million. Let's try $4 trillion. How's that? That and a lot more as we head for the front pages of the mothership website, Newsmax.com. Welcome in managing editor Tim Colley. Good day, sir. How are you?
Hey, good day, Ed. How are you doing?
It's another day in paradise. But then again, I say that every day just because it is. Come on, brother. It is just that. Top of the site right now, and it has changed since America's Forum this morning with a great interview with Representative Peter King, telling Newsmax TV that Harry Reid is denying reality or denying the truth on the border crisis. We need to ask Representative King to tell us exactly how he feels sometimes. Great comment.
Yeah. Harry Reid claiming the border is secure despite the fact that tens of thousands of illegal youngsters are pouring across it.
It is interesting simply because this goes back and forth, Tim. We're going to hear a lot more on this now that we're into this whole whether or not we spend $3.7 billion. So won't it be sort of interesting and almost entertaining to watch as the two sides go battle with each other?
Yeah, I mean, Reid is putting forth a very extreme position, so it's difficult to say what the battle is going to be. I think most of his Democratic colleagues acknowledge they've got a serious problem. And so the question is, do you spend the $3.7 billion that the president wants, which only includes about $221,000, I think, for border security, or do you go with a much more streamlined plan that the Republicans want, which includes a lot more money for border security?
All right, let's go ahead and move on to a couple of other stories on the Newsmax.com website. The CBO deficit to skyrocket to World War II highs. That in itself will shock a lot of people, and the administration does not want people to hear those words.
Yeah, because right now, and it's true, the deficit is falling year to year. That's going to last a couple more years, and things are going to kick in. We've got the largest generation in history retiring. They're going to be going on Medicare, Social Security, and other programs. And quite frankly, this doesn't even begin to include the huge pension costs that many states are facing.
And about 30 seconds left. Maryland Governor O'Malley refuses to shelter border kids. I have a feeling we're going to hear there's a lot more governors as this issue of the immigration crisis moves ahead.
Yeah, it's cutting across the political spectrum. They don't want to be responsible for children being transported from the border into their states where anything can happen at this point. Of course, the fear is once you bring them inland, the message gets back to Honduras, El Salvador, that, hey, once you cross that line, you're in.
Make sure everybody crosses the line to go to Newsmax.com. Check out these stories and a whole lot more, and we will check it every day right here during MidPoint to find out what is top of the news. Tim, always a pleasure, my friend. Have a great rest of the day.
You too, Ed. Talk to you later.
Exactly. And there you go. Don't forget, Newsmax.com for all the news, and we'll talk about it right here. Now, let's take a moment and talk about this American moment.
Thomas Jefferson is credited with doubling the nation's size through the Louisiana Purchase. But it was events far beyond his control that made that purchase possible. After becoming president in 1801, Jefferson recognized the Mississippi River had become a major trade route bordering the eastern boundaries of the United States. But he also recognized its vulnerability, since the city that controlled the mouth of the Mississippi, New Orleans, was owned by the French. America's overtures to purchase the city of New Orleans were repeatedly rejected by the French until 1803, when the French Navy suffered a major defeat off the coast of what is now Haiti. Napoleon found himself needing money to rebuild his navy. Consequently, when in that same year, Secretary of State James Monroe again traveled to Paris with an offer to purchase New Orleans, he was pleasantly surprised to learn Napoleon was willing to sell not only New Orleans, but all of France's territories in the New World. The United States was ready to spend up to $10 million to purchase just the city. So when Napoleon offered to sell all of their land holdings for a total of $15 million, the future president accepted. In one action, 828,000 square miles covering the future states of Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Dakota, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Texas, and Wyoming became part of America for less than 3 cents per acre. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American moment.
I met St. Jude because I had a cancer inside of me. They diagnosed me with a brain tumor. You have to be strong and don't give up. Attitude is everything. You have to fight.
Imagine your doctor tells you your child has cancer with only months to live. Where would you go? What would you do? Who would you turn to? Fortunately, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is fighting every day to save children's lives. And with a gift of just $19 a month, you can join the fight.
This is my kid that they're giving back to me. I am so grateful.
At St. Jude, no family ever receives a bill. In fact, no family pays St. Jude for anything. That's why your gift of $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, is so important.
When I thought that I might lose my son, they gave me hope. you are not only saving a child's life, you're breathing life back into that family.
If I hadn't have come here, I wouldn't have my son.
St. Jude's life-saving research and treatment is shared freely with hospitals around the world.
St. Jude gives you hope and happiness. They're helping us live. Maybe in the future, kids won't have to go through this. We'll find a cure and it'll all be over.
Please, call and become a St. Jude Partner in Hope right now.
The land of the free honors the bravest of the brave for their sacred pledge to protect our freedoms, our Constitution, and our way of life. We will always remember you. We will always salute you.
The reality is the situation determined that this needed to be told to the public. You know, the Constitution of the United States has been violated on a massive scale. Now, had that not happened, had the government not gone too far and overreached, we wouldn't be in a situation where whistleblowers were necessary. I think it's important to remember that people don't set their lives on fire. They don't say goodbye to their families, actually pack up without saying goodbye to their families. They don't walk away from their extraordinarily comfortable lives. I mean, I made a lot of money for a guy with no high school diploma. And burn down everything they love for no reason.
As Edward Snowden continues his globe-trotting ways around the globe, either seeking to save the free world from itself or skulking in the shadows as the nefarious traitor some believe he really is, there remain a number of starter questions about the man who would be important, such as how he slipped past the CIA vetting process in the first place. That and more to answer as we welcome into the Midpoint. From the pages of the Washington Examiner, watchdog reporter Kelly Cohen will sink her teeth into this and a whole lot more. Kelly, thanks again for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. How are you?
It's another day. It's another wonderful day where I don't have to worry because I don't think Edward Snowden has any dirt on me, at least at this point.
Not yet.
Thank you. But boy, you just made me feel a whole lot more comfortable. Thanks a whole lot, Kelly. Your article in the Washington Examiner was very interesting because this is a question that many people have asked. The CIA actually hired Edward Snowden, but there was another group that actually had to vet him. The CIA paid them a lot of money. They didn't do a very good job, I guess, did they?
No, not at all. So, yeah, it's the U.S. Investigation Services, or USIS. They vetted Snowden, and they said he's good to go. But ironically, the federal government just handed him a $190 million contract to deal with immigration, to deal with the casework about immigrants coming to the U.S. So, they did a bad job. They've been under a lot of fire. They were under fire from OPM, but yet they just got a $190 million contract from the federal government to do what they failed to do with Edward Snowden. So.
Now, the USIS, of course, they defend their position. They won the contract. They said, look, we did everything we could at this point. As you were looking at the story and digging into it, did you get the sense that they really did everything they could, or just maybe the minimum of what they were supposed to do to check him out?
Well, they said that it was, if the USIS did, they vetted him correctly?
Yes.
I kind of got the hint that they kind of just did it. Well, the problem, this is what piqued my interest. OPM found that one person over at USIS did 15,000 background checks in a month, which, that's impossible. And if you look at the records, it shows he was doing background checks, saying yes, yes, no, no, but mostly yes, to people one right after another, which means he or she wasn't looking into the people. So if OPM found one person was doing 15,000 checks in a month, then odds are they really didn't look closely enough with Snowden, or who knows who else they didn't look closely into.
Now, you mentioned OPM. That's the Office of Personnel Management.
Personnel and Management. Yeah,
right.
Sorry, I assume everyone already knows.
No. That's quite all right, really.
Like
There's enough of these acronyms and enough of these abbreviations out there. We have to make sure everybody gets them because sometimes they just slip right past.
I know.
But you're right.
Sometimes,
Office of
to be honest with you, I still have to Google them.
That's why we're here. We're here to make sure that people don't have to Google them. That's why we do that.
Exactly.
So the Office of Personnel Management, June 4th report, 15,000 background checks in a month. And, of course, you said that is probably just literally impossible here. Again, as you wrote this story, did you get the sense, again, as you saw that number, that almost sets off another flashlight going, wait a minute, that's impossible. You wonder then how many other people are being hired out there by the government who are supposedly checked out, but who aren't really getting checked out very deeply.
Yeah, it's just another way I sit around and question sometimes what the government is doing and who they're handing out their money. USIS has, I think, 100-plus federal contracts with, I think it was like almost 100 federal agencies. So God knows what people are coming in and out, getting okayed or not okayed, mostly probably okayed not correctly because of them. But it's interesting to see. And I mean, a $190 million contract now to deal with immigration, which that's a whole nother ballpark compared to Edward Snowden. So that was, I think, like the money factor really drew me in. I'm like, okay, so $190 million, which probably to the federal government isn't a lot. It's a lot to me. Let's see where this money went to. Oh, it went to a company that did a bad job, and look where it ended up. And people know the Snowden name now, so it's tying those two together, it just makes you concerned a little bit.
You said it right, Kelly. To them, it is mere pennies. Something else that you wrote about that we wanted to also swing to a little bit here, a couple of minutes that we have left here. The U.S. government, and this is something else, people are always wondering where their taxpayer dollars are going here. I think people would be astounded to see the amount of money that the government is spending in social media advertising.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I'm addicted to social media. I know I spend a lot of time on it. So I'm like, all right, it's just interesting to think what the federal government spends money on. And you can do basic searches on fedbizops.gov. That's where I found it. You can search like anything. You can literally search vodka or LinkedIn or soccer balls, golf carts. You can search anything to see what the government needs people is giving their money out to. And same for usaspending.gov. You can do searches like that, and some things are okay. Like if you do search alcohol, they do, like some places rightly so need to buy beer or such. But I was like, all right, social media, what are they spending money on? And I found that in 2010 the government spent $945 million on ads and public communication, and that was 4 years ago when social media wasn't even necessarily that big. And so then I did research and I just found random things like $111,000 to hire a social media person in Uganda. And 12% of the Ugandan population uses the internet and smartphone occasionally. So, why do I need to spend money on that?
I also want to point out,
to do that research.
about 30, 40 seconds we have left. I also want to point out $630,000 the State Department spent buying Facebook likes. Likes.
Yeah.
They bought likes. What did you get a sense of what they were buying?
I don't need to pay for that.
Did you get a sense of what they were buying likes for and what they were liking for $630,000?
I think it was just to get. This was last summer. I think it was just to get their name out, so talk about what they're doing over at the State Department, to brag about their accomplishments. But I don't know why almost $1 million needs to go to that.
And
if people want to like State Department, they should do it on their own, not with my money.
I can't imagine many people wanting to go and like the State Department, but I guess if they could. And almost $500,000 a grant last year to fund Twitter Health. 10 seconds. What was that all about?
It was, if I'm sick, I have the flu, I'm going to tweet not feeling so well, and the government's going to say, all right, don't go over in that area because she tweeted from downtown D.C. that she has the flu. Basically.
Your government at work, making sure that every drippy runny nose in America is noted and also probably up on Google Maps somewhere.
Exactly.
Welcome to our world. Kelly, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, please. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you for letting me ramble. Thank you.
All right, please, ramble away. Thank you very much. Don't forget, you get to like us as well at Newsmax on Facebook as well. Coming up next, what happened in Jersey City, New Jersey needs reflection. It's next on MidPoint.
Smile.
No matter how well you provide for your family today, if you don't have life insurance, their future may be at risk. Think about what would happen if you were gone. Would they struggle to pay the bills and face an uncertain future? They don't have to. You can help guarantee those you love $200,000, $500,000, $750,000 or more with life insurance through AIG Direct. We'll help you get more for your money, up to 70% more. Just look, less than $14 a month buys a 40-year-old man a $250,000 term life policy. That's up to 3 times what you can get from other companies for the same price. No wonder millions of people rely on AIG companies. The call is free, the quote is free, and there's no obligation. Make the future more secure for those you love. Call now so you can sleep better at night.
For a free quote, call 1-800-558-5246 or visit AIGdirect.com.
Do you sleep too hot while your partner sleeps too cool? Do you struggle to sleep at the right temperature? Now Sleep Number has a solution that's as revolutionary as its beds. Introducing the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer. The amazing Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer allows both of you to select your ideal temperature for better sleep. The Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer works with any mattress brand. It features Active Air technology, which evenly distributes air to heat and cool each side to the temperature you prefer for head-to-toe comfort. Call or click now for this free $50 savings card and catalog.
My husband and I both prefer different temperatures. He likes to have his side of the bed a little bit warmer, and I like to have mine a little bit cooler, and we are finally sleeping better together.
After sleeping on a dual temp layer, I find that I have such a restful night's sleep that when I wake up in the morning, I am energized and I'm ready for the day.
All night long, you can each enjoy sleep at a temperature that perfectly matches what your body needs for comfortable sleep, so you can sleep better together. In a research study, 75% reported poor sleep because of their sleeping temperature. That's because your body's temperature naturally fluctuates at night. But with the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer, you can sleep comfortably warm or cool. And because the revolutionary Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer helps solve an important sleep problem, it was selected as a very innovative product by Good Housekeeping. Remember, the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer can be added to any mattress brand, so everyone can enjoy sleeping better at the perfect temperature. Call or click now.
Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now for a free $50 savings card and catalog with price list. For your peace of mind, the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer comes with a 100-night in-home trial. Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now. That's 1-800-317-5283 for your free $50 savings card and catalog.
Life can hit you with the unexpected. Forcing you to make difficult decisions. Leaving you feeling helpless. You don't have to lose your home. It's time to take control. The National Foundation for Credit Counseling can help. The NFCC is a nonprofit organization that has been providing quality financial counseling and education for 60 years. Our national network of community-based member agencies have helped millions of consumers with foreclosure prevention. Seek advice from our certified housing counselors today. Call us or visit mortgagehelpnow.org. Real solutions for real people.
Officer Santiago, on the job just 7 months, was murdered while responding to a robbery call at the pharmacy on the corner of Kaminapa and Kennedy Boulevard. His mother is overwhelmed with grief.
My son was 23 years old, and he was a good boy, and he didn't deserve to get a bullet in his head.
Investigators say the officer was ambushed. There was no robbery. Instead, authorities say 27-year-old Lawrence Campbell was waiting inside the pharmacy after knocking out a security guard in front of the store and stealing his weapon. He allegedly shot the officer as he got out of his cruiser, and minutes earlier, officials say, bragged about his apparent plot to a driver fleeing the parking lot.
He told the individual to watch the news later that he's going to be famous.
We are faced every day, every single day, with controversies. Some, more often than not, are completely contrived and have no business being the stuff of discourse. We as a nation and as a people must confront what makes us not only human, but civilized and thinking, rational people. And it seems plenty of times we are then forced to take a look at ourselves in a mirror and wonder, seriously, is this we, I, us? Is this what we are and who we are as a people? It's heady stuff indeed. Some of the questions facing us include what we talk about here every day. What is it that really drives the immigration crisis? Why can we not agree on a single course of action for where we are going as a nation, much less a civilization? How can we emerge from this black hole of neither wanting to nor being able to trust anyone in a position of authority? And why is it we cannot seem to, at the very least, attempt to prove we are a nation worthy of being in a leadership role around the world because of who we are at our very core? Melvin Santiago is 23 years of age, a cop in Jersey City, New Jersey, just another young person who for some reason found the desire to serve the public. For some reason, one that many times we need to thank them for without hesitation. The ones who put their lives on the line for people they will never meet, people they will never know, and those who sometimes deride them for being part of that law enforcement community. He responded to an armed robbery report at a 24-hour drugstore just after 4 a.m. 27-year-old Lawrence Campbell was inside that drugstore. Police reports show he went into the store, beat up an armed guard, stole the guard's gun, then just waited outside for police to show up. While he was waiting, he apologized to a customer for his conduct, told her to watch the news because he was going to be famous. As a matter of record, Campbell was a known felon linked to a prior homicide in Jersey City. Police and the people who knew him already understood this was a bad guy. 4 minutes later, Santiago and his partner pulled into the parking lot. They never saw it coming. Campbell shot at close range using the gun he'd stolen. A second police car arrived on the scene. Campbell fired 3 more shots into that car. Officers responded. Campbell didn't survive. Santiago was not long after pronounced dead at the Jersey City Medical Center, where fellow cops had gathered to offer moral support and simply to be there. Santiago had only been on the job since December of last year. Now, that was Sunday. On Monday, in the neighborhood where the killer lived, something happened. A memorial went up on the wall of a building. The memorial candles, balloons, empty liquor bottles, and a pair of white T-shirts taped to the wall. There were handwritten messages on them, including "Thug in peace" and "See you on the other side." The mayor of New Jersey City called the memorial ignorant and disgusting, determined to prove that a few residents of a battle-worn city were not going to define them. He ordered the memorial removed, the wall washed. But it didn't end there. There were people, those refusing to give their name, who were upset the memorial had been removed. A man told the mayor, and I quote from the New York City CBS TV station, "For the cops to come take it down, I think it was wrong. Even though he killed a cop. All right, but that's what we do in the inner city. He was somebody's kid." So was Melvin Santiago. For those who have never been there, it's likely you never will go to Jersey City. It's an ugly place, a dangerous one. The national median for violent crimes per 1,000 residents is 3.9. In Jersey City, 7.3. The national median shows about 39 crimes per square mile. In Jersey City, it's 344. In the crime index ratings, with 100 being the safest, Jersey City's at 26. Over 7,300 violent and property crimes in Jersey City. Melvin Santiago is just one young man, one life, snuffed out by a callous criminal who cared nothing for his life nor those of others. But for there to be people who worshipped and memorialized him in death, who felt there was nothing wrong with shooting a cop just because it's what we do in a neighborhood? We spend a lot of time talking about protecting our borders, a worthwhile and necessary cause. But sometimes we should be looking inside our borders to find the things that really need work day after day after day. And that is telling it like it is. And that's here on MidPoint, where every day, no matter the issue, we question everything.
Meet Mary. She loves to shop online with her debit card. And so does Bill, an identity thief who stole Mary's identity, took over her bank accounts, and stole her hard-earned money. Unfortunately, millions of Americans just like you learn all it may take is a little misplaced information to wreak havoc on your life. This is identity theft, and no one helps stop it better than LifeLock. LifeLock offers the most comprehensive identity theft protection available. If Mary had LifeLock's bank account alerts, she may have been notified before it was too late. LifeLock's credit notification service is on the job 24/7. As soon as they detect a threat to your identity within their network, they will alert you, protecting you before the damage is done. LifeLock has the most comprehensive identity theft protection available, guarding your social security number, your money, your credit, even the equity in your home.
My years as a prosecutor taught me that we all need to protect ourselves from crime. In today's world, that includes identity theft. It's a serious problem. We all have to protect ourselves.
While identity theft can't be completely stopped, No one works harder to protect you than LifeLock. You even get a $1 million service guarantee. That's security no one can beat. You have so much to protect and nothing to lose. When you call LifeLock right now and get 60 days of identity theft protection risk-free. That's right, 60 days risk-free. Use promo code NOTME. Order now and get this document shredder to keep sensitive documents out of the wrong hands. A $29 value, free. Don't wait until you become the next victim. Call 1-800-918-3128 for 60 days of LifeLock identity theft protection risk-free and get a document shredder free. Use promo code NOTME. Call 1-800-918-3128 now.
Has blown open the race discussion in America once again. Was it proper for the man who was charged with enforcing America's laws to insert himself directly into the conversation? Republicans are heading to Cleveland for their 2016 convention, Democratic hotbed, and it begs the question of why. And are the Republicans again making a strategic mistake? And the National Football League is now square in the crosshairs of the federal government. The Drug Enforcement Administration is focusing on an issue everybody has known about for decades, the drugging of players. That and much more as we question everything for Wednesday, July 16th, 2014. And our daily jaunt to Outland reveals monkeys watching movies, why some people buy pants several sizes too large, and the American spelling bee, city style. We'll get to it right after John Bachman deals another edition of Newsmax Now.
And thanks for that, Ed. Today, the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says situations are going to improve at CDC centers across the country.
With the recent incidents, we recognize the pattern at CDC where we need to greatly improve the culture of safety, and I'm overseeing sweeping measures to improve that culture of safety.
That is the director, Dr. Thomas Frieden there. Those comments were part of testimony before a U.S. congressional subcommittee investigating embarrassing recent lapses in safety, including the handling of anthrax and the avian influenza. Also in the United States, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry back home now, meeting with the Luxembourg Foreign Minister Jean Asselborn. Speaking at a press conference today, he said the U.S. is committed to help stop the fighting between Israel and Hamas.
We're doing everything in our power. I've been in touch with Prime Minister Netanyahu, with the Egyptians, the Foreign Minister, with others in the region, and we'll continue to dialogue on it. I'll be seeing the President today.
Well, Kerry says the goal is to reach a legitimate ceasefire so the killing can stop. And it was also a close call today for the Israeli foreign minister and his Norwegian counterpart. As they were eating lunch, they had to duck for cover in that city, in the southern Israel city, where they came under attack because of rocket fire. You see some of the folks there ducking on the street. A children's clinic was partially destroyed in that attack, or damaged, I should say. The attack comes one day after Hamas refused to join Israel on an Egyptian-backed ceasefire. More news ahead in 30 minutes.
There's a certain level of vehemence, it seems to me, that's directed at me, directed at the president. You know, people talk about taking their country back. You know, I can't look into people's hearts, look into people's minds, but it seems to me that this president has been treated differently than others. There's a certain racial component to this for some people. I don't think this is the thing, is a main driver, but for some, there's a racial animus.
Attorney General Eric Holder is the man charged with upholding the laws of this country. In the minds of many, this is a task that needs to be undertaken by someone who remains above the fray. But AG Holder has proven himself to be someone who does not believe in staying silent nor being a middleman in the road and just waiting and arbitrating. His comments recently about racial animus toward himself and President Barack Obama are merely the tip of his inciting iceberg, seen now by more than a few as being slightly unhinged. Welcome to MidPoint, former U.S. Attorney Joe diGenova, to weigh in on the current actions of our top cop. Joe, thanks so much for joining us today.
Delighted to be with you.
Joe, let's start right out with this. Some people are saying, wait a minute, he is the Attorney General. He is a man in power. Nothing wrong whatsoever with the Attorney General speaking out as he did. To which you would answer.
Well, because he is the Attorney General, he must be careful about the words he uses and the way he uses them. I think that any normal person who had been in government as long as Eric has been and has had as many jobs as he had would have learned by now that this type of incendiary rhetoric, which is baseless in fact, which is the worst part of it, is simply unacceptable for a senior government official. Eric is the African-American Attorney General of the United States, now going into his second term. He works for the African-American President of the United States, who was elected twice by the American people, although with fewer votes in the second election for the first time in American history. The bottom line is that his statements are almost paranoid. Neither the President nor the Attorney General has been treated differently than any other President or any other Attorney General. It's as if they don't think there's any basis for any criticism of them at any time. This is called politics. When you are in power and you do things, you're going to be criticized for it. The President's skin color and the Attorney General's skin color have absolutely nothing to do with the criticism of them. A case in point, the IRS investigation. Any Attorney General worth his salt would have never appointed a person who is a high donor to the Obama campaign to be the lead so-called career attorney investigating this criminal case. So for him to think that criticism of him and the President has some sort of racial animus to it is not only silly, it's simply unhinged. It's nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't some racists out there who don't like them because they're black. I'm sure there are. But this is about politics and governing, and it's quite clear that both the Attorney General and the President are not very good at governing, and people are telling them that, and they don't want to hear it. You know, this President was raised in a world of adulation, of telling him that he's wonderful and perfect. When he was first elected, we used to call him the baby Jesus because people were tiptoeing around, afraid to say anything about him. We're long since past that now, and even the media is finally waking up, although too late to be of any value. But that's where we are.
Joe, I once again want to point out that you very rarely speak your mind. You really don't tell people exactly how you think. I want to show them some of your comments from WMAL Radio in Washington, and allow us to quote you, if you will, and for the audience here to see this. These comments are stupid, they're silly, they're churlish, they're childish, they're sophomoric. This is faculty lounge crap. Joe, really please, next time you're on the show, I want you to be just a little bit more open and make sure that you get it off your chest here. But in all this, and we understand this, and there is anger about this, you use the word racist, though. Let's deal on that for a moment. Is it not fair to say, though, that there are people who simply do not like the President and do not like the Attorney General simply because they're African American?
I think there are people like that, but I think they are so infinitesimally small that it's politically irrelevant, and it has nothing to do with the criticism of them, which is what this discussion is about.
Is it almost to say that if he is upset about the criticism that he is receiving, that he brought it on himself?
Well, there's no question that both the President and the Attorney General are responsible for the criticism that they are receiving. In foreign policy, the President's performance has been below Jimmy Carter level. I mean, it is so subpar as to be in a submarine beneath the ocean. And it's just silly to note or to suggest that the criticisms of them are founded on anything else other than policy differences, whether it's immigration, law enforcement, Fast and Furious, Benghazi. I mean, the list goes on. The IRS, targeting of conservatives. It doesn't matter what it is. There's plenty of legitimate stuff here for the people to be concerned about. The President, for example, decided that he's going to become the assassin-in-chief by assassinating American citizens on foreign fields without due process. Now, the Attorney General of the United States, in defense of the President, says, well, you're not entitled to due process of a court when you're an armed combatant. You're entitled to the best due process that's available in deciding whether or not to kill you when the President sits there with his kill list. Now, anybody who knows anything about the way this country functions know that people are going to have reasonable differences with them over whether or not this is a good policy to be killing Americans with drones overseas and even in war zones. But they don't accept that. They say that people who question that I've got something wrong with them.
Okay,
I think this shows a political immaturity that is truly staggering.
Let's stay on the race card here, because that's a phrase that is so often used anymore. I think we have to go back and we have to find out exactly where that started. But the race card word itself, why is it that the Attorney General has decided to play this card as often as he has?
Because he's a Democrat, and that's what Democrats do. This is about the Democratic Party, which, of course, as you know, is the party of racism, the party of Jim Crow, the party of separate but equal, the party that started segregation in the South. They are the people who held up the great civil rights pieces of legislation in the 1960s. It was the Republicans who saved civil rights legislation. The Attorney General, who has a personal connection to the civil rights movement through his family, displays a type of ignorance and political naivete. It's almost as if he has learned nothing from all the years that he's been in Washington. This has nothing to do with racism. The president and the AG have sought to make it about that as a terrible defense of their conduct. There's no evidence that there's any racism. I mean, even the horrible New York Times criticizes them from time to time. I mean, that doesn't mean, God forbid, that there should ever be a racist person at the New York Times. This is a hollow argument. It's the last bastion of a scoundrel. It sounds stupid because it is stupid. This is what the American people don't like about this president. They know they're being gamed by a street urchin.
Let's get into the actual job itself, the Attorney General. You've been in this seat before. You've been in this legal seat many times here. The Attorney General, the top cop in the United States. There are those who would say it is within his purview. It is all right for somebody like this to bring these things to note, whether or not they think it's right or wrong, but to say something. There are others who will go the exact opposite. They'll say, look, this is the Attorney General. He needs to be quiet unless he's doing something that it was in the rule of law here and basically not taking a side. Where do you fall?
Well, I don't have any problem with the Attorney General or the President bringing up issues related to race when they are legitimate and they are related to a specific thing. This was a smear of an entire group of people, unnamed, you'll note. This is the worst type of defense of yourself. We've been treated differently, is what he's saying. That is utter nonsense. That is faculty lounge crap. They have not been treated differently. This president has been treated differently only in this sense, in that he has been anointed as almost saint-like, and it is only recently that the press has begun to ask questions. For example, I noted recently this silly complaint by this international journalist organizations that the administration is not transparent and they're not getting enough access. Where the hell were these people? All of a sudden they've noticed this? I mean, this is idiotic. The journalists, by the way, who scream for a shield law, I used to be in favor of one, not anymore. Not the way these guys are performed. They're part of the government. The mainstream media has become nothing more than a flack for the President of the United States. And for the Attorney General to complain about his treatment, my goodness, I haven't noticed any bad articles about him. They may complain about a decision, but for heaven's sakes, I don't even know what he's talking about.
I want to bring this up to Brad Thor, is the author of The Act of War, and he had his time on the Glenn Beck program talking about his book. But instead of pitching the book, he decided to respond to Eric Holder. Here's that sound.
Mr. Holder, the one true racist in this dialogue is you. You see everything through the prism of race. You are the racist. You are using racism to cover up the inadequacy of the performance of the President of the United States and the absolute dereliction of duty in your office. You, sir, are the racist.
Is that it, Joe? Just a smokescreen, and basically that's what politicians from every side play. They try and smokescreen whatever they've got, whatever's bad going on, find something else to cover it up?
Well, I think that the use of the racist by the Attorney General was a terrible mistake. It's absolutely wrong. There's no basis in fact for his accusation. I think that he and the President both are on the defensive. They're on the ropes. The Attorney General's performance, for example, in running the department and not conducting what most of us consider to be legitimate investigations, not conducting those legitimate investigations like the IRS, really has presented a picture not only of incompetence, but of an over-politicization of the legal process. I think this Justice Department is going to go down in history as the most political Justice Department in the history of the United States.
As a former U.S. attorney, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give Eric Holder and his department and their performance?
I give him a 2 at best.
I'm shocked, actually, Joe, that you went to it, too. I was really expecting something
I'm
subterranean.
being polite to an old Eric is actually an old friend, but I'm sure I'm not going to be his friend anymore. But I love the guy, but he's not done well as Attorney General, and he has not acquitted himself well in the last 48 hours.
20 seconds left. Any surprise whatsoever that the president has not had any response to all of these comments?
Well, I find it interesting that the president has not made it known that he's distancing himself from the comments like he did earlier when Eric made his famous speech at the DOJ when he was sworn in about how Americans were cowards. I've got news for Eric. Americans are not cowards. They're brave. They went to Normandy. They went down to Mississippi in the civil rights movement. Americans are very brave in fighting racism, and he's wrong, and he should be ashamed of himself.
I think you might be right. I dare say that the two of you won't be sharing bagels and coffee anytime soon. But then again, in Washington, stranger things happen. That always happens. There, former U.S. Attorney Joe DeGeneva. Thanks so much for joining us, Joe. We'll do it again.
A pleasure, anytime.
All right, take care. Coming up next, someone needs to explain why the Republicans are heading to Cleveland for their national convention, and we have someone who hails from Ohio who wants more than a simple answer. It's right here on MidPoint.
I'm at St. Jude because I had a cancer inside of me. They diagnosed me with a brain tumor. You have to be strong and don't give up. Attitude is everything. You have to fight.
Imagine your doctor tells you your child has cancer with only months to live. Where would you go? What would you do? Who would you turn to? Fortunately, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is fighting every day to save children's lives. And with a gift of just $19 a month, you can join the fight.
This is my kid that they're giving back to me. I am so grateful.
At St. Jude, no family ever receives a bill. In fact, no family pays St. Jude for anything. That's why your gift of $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, is so important.
When I thought that I might lose my son, they gave me hope.
You are not only saving a child's life, you're breathing life back into that family.
If I hadn't come here, I wouldn't have my son.
St. Jude's life-saving research and treatment is shared freely with hospitals around the world.
St. Jude gives you hope and happiness. They're helping us live. Maybe in the future, kids won't have to go through this. We'll find a cure and it'll all be over.
Please, call and become a St. Jude Partner in Hope right now.
Now on Newsmax TV, Mitt Romney for president again? Pundits say he could be the surprise comeback candidate for 2016. Watch The Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV. Go now to Newsmax TV.
Since 1948, every Republican National Convention has been held in July or August, even September, as was the case in 2008. The problem is that limits the time the nominee and running mate have to make their case before the general election. A June convention addresses that, and more importantly, shortens the time between the convention and the primaries that keep getting earlier and uglier.
The Republican National Committee is heading to Cleveland for their nominating convention. Interesting, especially when you consider that Ohio is almost bathed in Democrats, and Cleveland itself strikes as more than a suspect decision. We'll dig into that and much more from the political scene. Welcome into MidPoint, the founder of Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch, and who took the Cleveland call and asked in an article. It has received plenty of national attention. I want to correct myself. He lived and worked in Cleveland. He is not from Ohio. From Los Angeles now, we welcome Larry Klayman into the show. Larry, thanks for being here.
Pleasure.
Want to make sure we get all the places right here and make sure that we note all that.
Well, I'm around. I'm a little bit like Yasser Arafat. I don't sleep in the same place apart.
Well, I dare say you may not be able to sleep in Cleveland after the article that you wrote, because it certainly started out, and the line that got a tremendous amount of attention here in all the different websites was, Larry Klayman slams Clevelanders as too fat to host GOP convention. All right, tell us how this whole thing started and why you went after Cleveland.
I have experience with Cleveland. I lived there for a period of time after I ran for the U.S. Senate in Florida, Ed, where you're from, and myself as well. That's my state, my native state. I moved up to Cleveland. I worked for a law firm there, Walter and Haverfield, and I lived downtown in the Warehouse District, which was intended at the time to rejuvenate Cleveland. Cleveland had become, in effect, a ghost town. It had lost a lot of industry. Its sports have essentially not won anything for decades, perhaps centuries. And they were looking really to create a new image. I did some TV commentary about Cleveland, and I was very enthusiastic about it. But over time, as I lived there, I found it to be one of the most depressing places I've ever experienced. And that's not to say there aren't nice people in Cleveland. There are. I still have friends there. But Clevelanders have an attitude, an approach, that they're victims. And the fact that sports teams have never won anything in modern history is a reflection of that. But more importantly, with regard to the Republicans, is that close to 99% of all the precincts in Cleveland voted for Obama. It may even be 100%. It's the most liberal city in the United States, bar none. Dennis Kucinich, who was a congressman there, essentially a communist, that was their congressman. And so it doesn't make sense from that perspective, but also from a logistical perspective, Cleveland is completely a dead letter. They don't have hotels. They have one decent hotel downtown at the Tower Place, and that's in a high crime area that is frequented by gangs. It's the Ritz-Carlton, and it's below par for a Ritz-Carlton. There are essentially no other facilities to serve the Republican convention. There are 3 restaurants downtown that you would want to eat at, unless you want to go to McDonald's or something like that. And so it's terrible from that perspective. And then in July and August of each year, these really foul creatures called lake flies, believe it or not. I mean, they're gnats, but they're bigger. They're giant gnats. Swarm into the area. It's not even funny. I have to laugh. Because
you're
the
killing
choice
us,
is
Larry.
absurd.
You're killing us. we're sitting here right now waiting to see if we can find some bug spray or something that sounds so bad. Well, wait a minute. Isn't this?
You need more than bug spray, Ed, I'll tell you.
Isn't this? But you pointed this out. Before we get to the whole Republican issue here, and again, why, which is still a question that has vexed so many people here. When you talk about Cleveland, they simply are put upon. They are the butt of jokes constantly. You still hear about the lake being on fire on a regular basis. That is a standard joke about Cleveland. And you're right, I have to say that I've been in Cleveland many times, and it's a nice city. I mean, there's nice people there, but outside of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where do you got to go? I mean, they really don't have a lot, and it would seem to many people to be just an example of that Rust Belt city where Democrats have always been in power, the politics have always been wrong, and the cities just never have come out of the dark ages.
Well, there's a reason for that. You know, I'm laughing because I don't hate the people of Cleveland, obviously,
no,
but you have to laugh or you'll cry. It is absolutely the worst major city short of Detroit. And you can see the video in that's linked to my column. You can find it at freedomwatchusa.org, freedomwatchusa.org. It's the mistake on the lake, and they've done nothing to improve it. It's just terrible. It's worse now than it was when I lived there back in 2005. And why the Republican Party would want that kind of an image when it's on the decline, in effect. They're trying to rejuvenate themselves, but frankly, the establishment of the Republican Party continues to put down conservatives and libertarians. It's run by John Boehner, who people have lost faith in as Speaker of the House. Why they would want to have a convention in a city which is a certified loser is beyond belief. And let's talk about the legal system in Cleveland, of which I've had some experience. It's one of the most corrupt in the United States, particularly the family courts, where judges and lawyers scratch each other's backs. It's constantly criticized by even the leftist Cleveland plain dealer as being a cesspool. The city is a total wreck. So I'm not advocating for the Republican Party. I'm nonpartisan, although I am a conservative libertarian, and certainly don't like to see Obama in power from a personal standpoint, or any of his successors, particularly Hillary Clinton, who I fought for many years at Judicial Watch and continue to fight at Freedom Watch. But why Cleveland? If you want to do it in Ohio, and Ohio is a key electoral state, do it in Cincinnati, do it in Columbus, but not Cleveland. It's a terrible, terrible place to present an image for the American people. It's basically a city which is one step from going under for the count.
Well, then try and find something positive here then from the Republicans' side of things then. You've pointed everything out, which is exactly correct. It is a Democratic state. There's no reason to think there's going to be more than, if you have 10,000 people to go to the convention, that will make 10,002 Republicans. It will probably be in Cleveland at that specific time. What's the point they're trying to make? Or are they simply just, have they gone off the rails on this one? Did no other city want them? You have to find it stunning to believe that they couldn't put it somewhere else.
I got to tell you, I mean, I'm looking at this from a neutral perspective. I don't do business with the RNC. We're nonpartisan, but Rance Priebus, who's the head of the RNC, I don't know why he's still the head of it. I mean, after the last election, after that incredible defeat, that they snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory with Mitt Romney, who I believe was a good candidate and is a good man. This guy shouldn't be the head of the RNC. For him to choose Cleveland, now he's from another Midwestern city, which is almost as depressed, apparently Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Maybe he likes the Midwest, but you know what? If he likes the Midwest, why doesn't he go there on vacation? And why does he subject his entire party to a city of losers? And as far as, you know, the allegation of being fat, yeah, they are fat. It's pathetic that you walk down the street, people look like they're going to have a heart attack at any moment. That's how overweight the whole city is, because they have no self-respect for themselves. And that's Cleveland, Ohio.
Is this endemic to a lot of what people are talking about right now when it comes to the Republican Party, Larry? Because if you look at them losing in the first election with Barack Obama, the second election, you pointed that out as well, what's happened here with Mitt Romney, that this is a party that in many ways, as many people would feel, has simply lost its way, and they continue almost wandering in the American desert here to try and find some sort of way to recapture the magic?
Yeah, see, the problem is that they're going back to their standard playbook, the Karl Rove's playbook, okay? And the Karl Rove playbook doesn't work anymore. You do have a different demographic in this country. You have to stand for something. People respected Ronald Reagan, and he was swimming upstream for most of his presidency because he believed in something, because he had values. And even if you don't believe in what the other person believes in, you can respect them. But nearly everyone has lost respect for the leadership of the Republican Party, including Republicans themselves. And I personally am a Republican, and I'm saddened by it, because if you go back to the days of Thomas Jefferson, our great founding father and third president, he was the first Republican. And he had real concepts of values, and he challenged. He was, you know, more than an icon. He was our ultimate hero, along with Adams and Washington and others. But the Republican Party is no longer Thomas Jefferson. The Republican Party is an expedient party, and that's why I use the analogy of fat people. And I don't mean to disparage people because they're overweight, because many people are overweight. I'm a little overweight myself right now. But the reality is that that's a metaphor for the fact that the Republican Party has become too fat, feeding at the trough of the American people. They're like money changers in the temple in Jerusalem. As long as the change keeps rolling in reality, they're happy to split the pie with the Democrats. And they're both feeding off of the American people, both major political parties, and our country is sinking faster than a rock. And we have the head of the Republican Party, John Boehner, who stands for nothing.
I got about 30 seconds here. Does it just come to the point where they've got to jettison the Roves, the Cheneys, and all these from the old era and simply just start again, or at least try to start a little bit younger, a little fresher?
Well, they should start again. Necessarily being younger is not the answer. Getting people who have values and stand for them is the answer. You can take a lot of positions. You know, I'm against illegal immigration, but you don't have to show venom towards Latinos or others, you know, and sometimes that venom comes out. And you can take positions, you can be fair. Ronald Reagan, everybody liked him. He didn't make it personal. This Republican Party needs to stand for things, needs to stand for the rule of law, needs to stand for individual rights and liberties, needs to put an end, join us in our lawsuit against the NSA to prevent the American people from being spied upon and enslaved with constant surveillance. It needs to actually do something in Congress. You know, the Government Oversight and Reform Committee. We're
going to have to end it there, Larry. Unfortunately, we are all out of time. The people from Cleveland, they're calling you on your phone right now, and that's to ask you out to breakfast, I think. Larry, it's a pleasure to talk to you. We'll do it again. Thank you very much. Freedom Watch and Judicial Watch, and more to come on MidPoint.
Do you sleep too hot while your partner sleeps too cool? Do you struggle to sleep at the right temperature? Now Sleep Number has a solution that's as revolutionary as its beds. Introducing the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer. The amazing Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer allows both of you to select your ideal temperature for better sleep. The Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer works with any mattress brand. It features active air technology, which evenly distributes air to heat and cool each side to the temperature you prefer for head-to-toe comfort. Call or click now for this free $50 savings card and catalog.
My husband and I both prefer different temperatures. He likes to have his side of the bed a little bit warmer, and I like to have mine a little bit cooler, and we are finally sleeping better together.
After sleeping on a dual temp layer, I find that I have such a restful night's sleep that when I wake up in the morning, I am energized and I'm ready for the day.
All night long, you can each enjoy sleep at a temperature that perfectly matches what your body needs for comfortable sleep, so you can sleep better together. In a research study, 75% reported poor sleep because of their sleeping temperature. That's because your body's temperature naturally fluctuates at night. But with the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer, you can sleep comfortably warm or cool. And because the revolutionary Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer helps solve an important sleep problem, it was selected as a very innovative product by Good Housekeeping. Remember, the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer can be added to any mattress brand, so everyone can enjoy sleeping better at the perfect temperature. Call or click now.
Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now for a free $50 savings card and catalog with price list. For your peace of mind, the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer comes with a 100-night in-home trial. Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now. That's 1-800-317-5283 for your free $50 savings card and catalog.
Hi, I'm Jean, and this is my one and only Henry. We just love scouring flea markets for special treasures. But with my type 2 diabetes, we now spend all the time at the pharmacy. With Medcare, I don't have to. They deliver everything I need right to my door with free shipping. Plus, Medcare takes private policies, Medicaid, even my Medicare. Sleep apnea machines, nebulizers. Medcare has all the finest medical supplies. The best part, Medcare saves us money. Medcare allows us the time to do the things we love. Medcare, we deliver a better life.
Are you a man over 40 and feeling tired, losing muscle, have less romantic drive? Then call now for the Ageless Male Free Testosterone Giveaway. Every man who calls in the next few minutes will receive a free 30-day supply of Ageless Male. Ageless Male has ingredients clinically shown to increase free testosterone levels, and that supports muscle health, boosts romantic drive, and supports energy metabolism. Your free 30-day supply is waiting for you.
Hello, I'm John Bachman. This is your Newsmax Now update. I want to talk about New Jersey and that disgusting shrine dedicated to a cop killer who took the life of a 23-year-old rookie New Jersey cop. It's shocked the entire community of Jersey City, and now the police department is on edge after receiving new gang threats. Members of different gang-related organizations are teaming up to retaliate, they say, against the Jersey City Police Department. Documents suggest that gang members are stashing AK-47s and other automatic weapons in abandoned buildings to attack cops. A memorial to that cop killer includes balloons, candles, empty liquor bottles, and messages that, quote, read, "Rest easy, thug in peace." You see that right here. Meantime, also in New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is leaving the Garden State. He's going to be headed out to Iowa later today. Chris Christie's office says he's headed there to support Iowa's Republican Governor Terry Branstad in an upcoming election. But some believe Christie is actually testing out the waters for a possible presidential run in 2016. The New York Times is reporting that Christie's rivals are already gearing up to attack the New Jersey's governor's leadership and financial management skills. In any event, Iowa will be the first state to have a say, as it normally does in presidential elections coming up in 2016. Now, according to the latest Monmouth University poll, Christie's approval rating is at 50%, and one could argue that's better than President Obama's approval rating, especially based on some new poll numbers dealing with the crisis on the border. I'm John Bachman. We've got more news ahead in 30 minutes. Now, here's Ed.
All right, John, welcome to Outland, the place where the special people dwell. And as we dive into exploring the human condition, these are the people we often wonder about their condition. Let us go ahead and start. First of all, the new movie, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Many people are considering this to be the best movie of the year. I mean, it's getting tremendous reviews, did very well at the theaters. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina had a showing of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And we should point out that they bought their own popcorn.
It's the adorable moment art and life collide. 2-year-old chimps Vali and Sigriva seen here at a movie theater in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for the weekend premiere of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And much like their cinematic counterparts, these chimps are clearly highly evolved, buying their own tickets for the show and even paying for their popcorn and juice. After walking right up the stairs and presenting their tickets,
Can I see your ticket, please? Thank you.
they were ready for the show.
I'm sorry, my friend.
During the film, the chimps respond like many humans. Sigriva turning away during a dramatic scene, Vali clenching his companion's hand, and both clap for the good guys and bark at the bad, while still managing to get their popcorn fix.
Should be noted they also both hated the Justin Bieber documentary. Let us move now to Baltimore. There is certainly a need for spelling in this country. I don't know about you, but I am always one of those people, when I look, I can see words spelled badly right away. And it's something that people who are in their 20s, 30s, sometimes 40s even miss. That's why we have spell check, of course. In Baltimore, there was a building in Carroll County that had been considered as a temporary shelter for undocumented immigrant children. And the police are now involved because the Maryland State Police are taking this incident very seriously. I don't want to make a joke of this. They're really taking this seriously. Look at what was on the side of the wall here. No illegals here, no undocumented Democrats. Now, the Carroll County Times reports that the state police are investigating the graffiti. They are calling it a hate crime due to its ethnic implications. Now, we also want to point out the Obama administration had been considering, this is about a 4-acre site, as a potential shelter to house some of the influx Central American children who have been illegally crossing the border in recent months. The administration decided late last week that this site was not suitable. So far, the state police have not identified any suspects or any witnesses for this whatsoever. The commander of the Westminster Barracks, and again, this is just something that's so ridiculous. I mean, we talked last hour about how some people need to take a lot more pride in themselves. They said that he wouldn't be surprised if someone starts bragging about what they did. It's not worth bragging about. It really isn't. Now let's go ahead for this right here on American Moment and on MidPoint.
Hello, I'm back this week with this very important question. Is your doctor taking your blood pressure correctly? You may assume so, but a new study shows you may be wrong. According to this new research, doctors often cut corners when taking blood pressure and record readings that may be much too high. This is important information. First, if your blood pressure reading is wrong, you could be misdiagnosed with high blood pressure and put on powerful drugs for the rest of your life. You could also be denied health insurance, and your job may even be put in jeopardy. This is important information, so pay close attention. Number 1, is your doctor using the right size blood pressure cuff? Cuffs come in 2 different sizes, average and large, but too often only the average size cuff is even used, even on the person with a larger forearm. If the cuff is too tight, the reading will be too high. Number 2, is your blood pressure taken in both of your arms? Doctors are taught that this is not mandatory, but it should be. Even a small difference between the 2 pressure readings can mean you are at great risk of suffering from a stroke or even dying of heart disease. And number 3, is your blood pressure taken when you are seated on the examining table with your legs dangling in the air? If so, your reading may be 10 points too high. You should be seated in the chair with your feet on the floor and your legs apart and relaxed. Don't cross your legs at either the knees or the ankles. Remember, if your doctor doesn't take your blood pressure the correct way, you could be putting your health at risk. Many of you already have my book, The Simple Heart Cure. So if you do, you can read all about high blood pressure in Chapter 8. That's my health tip for this week. I'll see you next week with another important Heart Health Minute.
Get your copy of Dr. Crandall's best-selling book, The Simple Heart Cure, for just $4.95 with this special offer. Go to www.simpleheartbook.com to get your copy today. That's simpleheartbook.com.
Meet Mary. She loves to shop online with her debit card. And so does Bill. an identity thief who stole Mary's identity, took over her bank accounts, and stole her hard-earned money. Unfortunately, millions of Americans just like you learn all it may take is a little misplaced information to wreak havoc on your life. This is identity theft, and no one helps stop it better than LifeLock. LifeLock offers the most comprehensive identity theft protection available. If Mary had LifeLock's bank account alerts, she may have been notified before it was too late. LifeLock's credit notification service is on the job 24/7. As soon as they detect a threat to your identity within their network, they will alert you, protecting you before the damage is done. LifeLock has the most comprehensive identity theft protection available, guarding your social security number, your money, your credit, even the equity in your home.
My years as a prosecutor taught me that we all need to protect ourselves from crime. In today's world, that includes identity theft. It's a serious problem. We all have to protect ourselves.
While identity theft can't be completely stopped, no one works harder to protect you than LifeLock. You even get a $1 million service guarantee. That's security no one can beat. You have so much to protect and nothing to lose when you call LifeLock right now and get 60 days of identity theft protection risk-free. That's right, 60 days risk-free. Use promo code NOTME. Order now and get this document shredder to keep sensitive documents out of the wrong hands. A $29 value, free. Don't wait until you become the next victim. Call 1-800-918-3128 for 60 days of LifeLock identity theft protection risk-free and get a document shredder free. Use promo code NOTME. Call 1-800-918-3128 now.
We, the people of the United States,
in order to form a more perfect union,
establish justice,
ensure domestic tranquility,
provide for the common defense,
promote the general welfare,
and secure the blessings of liberty
to ourselves and our posterity.
Do ordain and establish this Constitution
for the United States of America.
Jeremy Newberry played 8 years at center for the San Francisco 49ers. According to the lawsuit, the 38-year-old suffers from renal failure, high blood pressure, and violent headaches because of all the pain medication he was given by team doctors and trainers to get him on the field.
Some games, I'm taking 2 or 3 Vicodin before the game, 2 or 3 Vicodin at halftime, taking a shot of Toradol before the game, and then getting both shoulders, hand shot up before the game.
The lawsuit alleges the NFL has illegally and unethically substituted pain medications for proper health care to keep the NFL's tsunami of dollars flowing.
The National Football League is the sports behemoth in America, able to do whatever they want almost whenever they want and not be questioned by anybody. At least that has been the prevailing thought for decades. But the recent player lawsuits over concussions has opened the door for players to be more proactive in how they have been used and treated over the years by the teams and the league. And the use of pain-killing drugs has finally caught the attention of the federal government because of players who are speaking out. This game is now changed forever. On Stick and Ball today, welcome to MidPoint as we delve into what could turn into another sport-altering moment for America's most popular game. Nationally recognized legal expert Adam Thompson joins us. Adam, thanks for being here.
Hey, my pleasure, and thanks for having me on.
Adam, we look at players like, and I know you're speaking from New York, so let's make sure we even make this a little New York-centric right here. We have guys like Ray Lucas that used to play for the New York Jets, who was talking about the tremendous amount of pain that he undergoes every single day now because he was given drugs. They gave him all sorts of medications during his playing years here. Wait a minute, I'm going to play the other side of this. There are people out there who will say, didn't the players know that they were being jacked with drugs in the first place, so it's not as if it just happened by osmosis?
Hey, listen, players want to play. They want to get their big contracts. More importantly, owners want to make the maximum profit they can, so they want to keep people in the seats with a winning team. How do you keep a winning team in a brutal sport like football? You got to keep them medicated and get them out on the field. If they're not out on the field, then the team doesn't do well. you don't sell tickets, you don't get those good promotional revenues. So their incentive is keep players out on the field, so they didn't care how they did it. Much like steroids hitting baseball, this could be the new steroid scar hitting the NFL about prescription medications to get these players to play at all costs. They didn't care how it would impact the player, the long-term effect on the player, or those type of things. Just win, 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 make money, money, money. That's what it was about.
Isn't it fair to say this could be a lot worse for the National Football League than the steroid issue? Because if you look back on what went on there, we're not talking about medications that you need prescription for in every single case here. We are talking about literally millions of pieces of medication that are giving out every single season.
This could be much, much, much worse than steroids was to baseball, for the simple reason that steroid use was done by a lot of players without the teams claiming that they knew what was going on and so forth. Here, you're talking about the trainers and doctors of the teams actually medicating these players to make sure they can get out on the field. That's what was most important to the ownership and the team itself. So with the understanding that the players were being pushed out by the owners themselves with the support of the staff, meaning the doctors and trainers, that's a huge black eye that they can't overcome because every team was doing it. So you're saying the whole culture of the NFL knowingly was to get profits at the cost of its players.
And
that's huge.
Speaking of the profits, I want you to hear, you've probably heard this already, but I want our viewers to hear this. This is Jim McMahon, played quarterback for the Chicago Bears, and this is a guy who is in horrible shape right now after the game, and pretty much has admitted in many instances that he took just about everything that they threw at him. But here's McMahon talking about what this has all meant to him and what happened during his playing years.
And they continue to make, billions and billions of dollars. They threw out $760 million to us, which is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it's 1% of what they make. And that fund's supposed to last 65 years. That won't last 2 years the way they got it structured.
Adam, let's look at this legally now from the players who are bringing lawsuits. Certainly there's the concussion lawsuits, and there very likely will be lawsuits after this once this all starts to get sorted out. The government gets involved here. Exactly what Jim McMahon said there. We got paid. We knew what it was. They handed it. We all want to win. People will still say that you knew what you were taking. So how does this all shake out legally then if the players go back in and say, I knew the drug you were giving me, but then again, I really didn't know what it would do to me. How does that work legally?
Well, legally, the first thing, you got to look at who was giving out the medication to the players. If trainers were doing it, trainers under the law aren't allowed to give out make prescriptions or give out prescription drugs. That only comes from a doctor. So first off, the trainers are going to be the weak link. They'll be the ones that, like, the government goes after when they do this investigation to try to say, listen, we know that you were injecting people, giving out medications. You're not supposed to do it. We'll strip your license. You'll never work again. They're going to pressure them to talk. Then they'll go after the doctors next saying, listen, if you're giving out medications, everybody knows first you got to do an exam, then you got to show a medical necessity for the need for the drug. If they can't do those things, then the doctor's licenses are at issue, and they may even face charges. Everyone remember Michael Jackson getting all that illegal stuff? Conrad Murray's in jail now because of it. So there can be even criminal charges down the line for doctors if they really violate the law, really, and show that the abuse is clear. In this situation, they'll say the players knew. How much did they know? They might have just been told, hey, you want that pain to go away? You want to get back on the field? Remember the movie Any Given Sunday? They show them in there talking about it. That depicts it better than anything. That's almost as true to life as you get. These players just want to get out there and do their best. So they might have told them it's a temporary fix. When they're getting those drugs, they may not know, hey, you can get addicted to it. Hey, you like the feeling of it. You want it every Sunday then. And then it's long-term effects. And then you have the breakdown of the body and everything else like steroids that follows. And most of them, trust me, did not know that. That'll be the focus of the lawsuit, that they were given it, even with an understanding that they were taking it at the time. They didn't know long-term how the effects would be. And they're going to argue negligence on the part of the team and the doctors for allowing them to use it and not properly informing them. And it's going to have some weight. It's going to have some weight. It's going to be a strong case.
20 seconds left here. Any doubt in your mind that if indeed the DEA does go after him, they are successful, that this will change the face of professional football forever simply because of the injury factor that goes on in this game and then the drugs that they can and cannot use?
Great question. It will 100% change the face of football because it's all about money. Money, money, money. If they got to pay out in a lawsuit, that's the only thing that will get the attention of the owners that want to change things. If it doesn't affect the bottom line of the pocket, they won't do a thing. But this does, so it will.
It's going to be interesting to see when the television contracts come up and everybody starts talking about where the money is going to go and how much the TVs want to get involved here, because let's face it, at the end of the day, it's still all about ratings and how much money you make, one way or the other.
You nailed it.
Adam, it was so nice of you to be so very calm and so very dispassionate involved in this conversation. We do appreciate that.
I'll try to tone it down next time, Ed.
Do that. Adam Thompson, thanks a lot for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, Stick and Ball is all done for today. Next up, the latest from the Middle East. News call for this Wednesday, right here on MidPoint.
I'm at St. Jude because I had a cancer inside of me. They diagnosed me with a brain tumor. You have to be strong and don't give up. Attitude is everything. You have to fight.
Imagine your doctor tells you your child has cancer with only months to live. Where would you go? What would you do? Who would you turn to? Fortunately, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is fighting every day to save children's lives. And with a gift of just $19 a month, you can join the fight.
This is my kid that they're giving back to me. I am so grateful.
At St. Jude, no family ever receives a bill. In fact, no family pays St. Jude for anything. That's why your gift of $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, is so important.
When I thought that I might lose my son, they gave me hope.
You are not only saving a child's life, you're breathing life back into that family.
If I hadn't come here, I wouldn't have my son.
St. Jude's life-saving research and treatment is shared freely with hospitals around the world.
St. Jude gives you hope and happiness. They're helping us live. Maybe in the future, kids won't have to go through this. We'll find a cure and it'll all be over.
Please, call and become a St. Jude Partner in Hope right now.
Are you feeling tired, run down, low on energy? Well, you could be just like millions of them. Change all of that. Introducing Actilin. Actilin is a premium nutritional supplement designed to support optimal thyroid function. Actilin has 17 powerful ingredients that support adrenal health, thyroid function, energy, and your immune system. Actilin was formulated by the renowned holistic practitioner, Dr. David Brownstein. And now, for a limited time, you can get a free bottle of Actilin with our special offer. You pay only for shipping and handling. Act right now and get Dr. Brownstein's free special report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Thyroid. Get Actilin and the special report. Sign up today at getactilin.com. That's getactilin.com. Or call us at the number below.
Hi, I'm Ben Affleck. The only thing better than playing a hero in the movies is being a hero in real life. Like the 50,000 veterans who returned from Iraq and Afghanistan with devastating injuries. They are true heroes, and they're why I'm proud to support Paralyzed Veterans of America. For more than 60 years, Paralyzed Veterans of America has made a promise to never leave a fallen comrade behind. They make sure veterans with spinal cord injuries get the quality medical care, rehabilitation, and housing they need when they come home. They stay with our fallen heroes for the long term, offering counseling, job training, and support to help them regain the freedom and independence they fought so hard for, all at no cost to them. Our veterans fought for us. Let's fight for them. To learn more about how you can help, visit pva.org. That's pva.org. We will never leave a fallen comrade behind.
What was a possible open door for peace was shut without discussion. Rockets are again being intercepted over Tel Aviv, and more than 100,000 residents of Gaza have been told to evacuate ahead of more airstrikes. The latest in how the world covers what's happening in the Middle East is the subject of this edition of News Call.
Hamas rejected an Egyptian proposal for a ceasefire with Israel on Tuesday, moments after the Israeli cabinet accepted the plan.
If Hamas rejects the Egyptian proposal and the rocket fire from Gaza does not cease, and that appears to be the case now, we are prepared to continue and intensify our operation to protect our people. And for this, we expect full support from the responsible members of the international community.
Hamas spokesman Sami Abu Zakri said the plan was unacceptable and promised to continue fighting until an agreement was reached that includes all of their conditions.
Israel took the Hamas rockets for 6 hours, hoping they would fade out. Instead, they increased. Then Prime Minister Netanyahu said Israel had no choice. He said Hamas will pay the price. He told the army to, quote, expand and intensify their campaign. So everyone's question, will Israel launch a ground invasion of Gaza?
We don't know yet. The Prime Minister said anything that will help Israel achieve its objective, which is a sustained period of quiet for the people of Israel. That's what we want.
In Israel, Hamas launched an attack on Tel Aviv this morning, the Iron Dome blocking those rockets fired from Gaza. But this defense mechanism did not stop Israel's first casualty late Monday. He was volunteering on the area's border crossing, delivering food to soldiers, and was hit by a mortar shell. In Gaza, more than 200 people now dead and over 1,500 injured. The United Nations says they're mostly civilians and is urging Israeli forces to back down.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, whose Fatah faction controls the West Bank, urged Hamas to accept the truce. In April, the two factions formed a unity government, but Hamas runs Gaza. A spokesman for the militant group said it rejected the ceasefire because Hamas had not been consulted.
The idea of declaring a ceasefire before meeting the terms of the resistance is unacceptable. We will not stop fighting before reaching an agreement that includes all the terms of the Palestinian resistance.
Those terms include releasing Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails and reopening border crossings with Egypt.
Cheers today as a young crowd watched Hamas rockets launch. Hopes for a ceasefire dashed. Israel answering the fire with airstrikes of their own, and Prime Minister Netanyahu tonight vowing to step up the campaign against Hamas.
The Israeli army has launched a series of attacks in the last hour or so. There's been at least 6 or 7 strikes actually in this vicinity, mostly we believe on open training fields used by Palestinian fighters. Now, all of that seems like the ceasefire is dead, but I just spoke with a U.S. official with knowledge of these negotiations, and he says no, in fact, the ceasefire is not dead. It's still very much on the table, and that Israel, in his words, had to respond to this rocket fire simply to communicate to Hamas.
It was never a proper ceasefire. Only the Israelis accepted it and said they'd hold their fire if Hamas did. But that didn't happen. Israelis kept running for cover. Back in Gaza, Israel resumed its warnings about bombing, as it did with this house a few days ago, first by phone and then with a small missile. Just over 4 minutes later came the main strike.
It is worth noting that Hamas walked away from the possibility of peace talks on Wednesday. The Hamas officials now say they are not opposed to a ceasefire, but as many people have thought for some time, they want it tied to specific issues. They want a larger agreement that would, among other things, end restrictions on border crossings that they say are choking the life out of the 1.8 million people living in Gaza. So it is so much more than just the stopping of firing of missiles. It is much more that Hamas wants. We're going to talk about this next hour, as a matter of fact. Also, Obama's enforcer and a stand in favor of more immigrants to America. It's coming up right here on MidPoint.
When Bob got into the accident, I was terrified. His injuries were so severe, but once we knew he was going to be okay, what then?
I couldn't go back to work for a long time, and we got way behind on our bills.
We'd hired an attorney, but when our case kept dragging on, we didn't know how we were going to get by. Thankfully, our attorney knew about Oasis Legal Finance.
Oasis looked at our case and got us the money the very next day.
What a relief it was. We didn't have to wait until our case settled, and the money from Oasis helped us when we needed it most.
At first, I wasn't so sure. What if we lost the case? How would we be able to pay back Oasis? But then I found out if we did lose, we wouldn't have to pay them back, so there was no risk in doing it. No risk.
If you were involved in an accident and hired an attorney to fight for the compensation you deserve but need money now before your case settles, then call Oasis today. Oasis has given millions of dollars to people like you who need money fast while waiting for their case to settle. There's no risk, so call now.
I was hurt badly in a car accident just after my wife gave birth. We were counting on the cash from my lawsuit to get caught up, but the case took forever.
Honestly, we didn't know what we were going to do. Then we saw an Oasis TV commercial and called. We were approved and got money from Oasis the next day.
Not in a week, the very next day.
I was hurt at work and filed a workers' comp claim. I called Oasis and they gave me the cash I needed. Unfortunately, I ended up losing my case, but Oasis let us keep the money. They kept their promise and we didn't need to pay them back.
There are no out-of-pocket costs and no payments until your case is settled. If you lose your case, you don't have to repay Oasis. There's no risk. Call Oasis now to see how much money you can get before your case settles.
Call now, 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184.
General Motors would like everyone to calm down and give them a second chance. They want the American consumer to trust them once again. But when you delve into the specifics, there are very few reasons to trust the bailed-out automaker. The top law enforcement official in America is using his office for more than doling out the law. Eric Holder is seen as more than a little dangerous by some, so we seek to find out if it's fact or hyperbole. And the time has come to realize how important immigrants are to America. This, as the battle rages on over the American border. Answers and more as we question everything for Wednesday, July 16th, 2014. The time has come to ask a few hard questions about the immigration crisis and to put some numbers to what legal immigrants add to the American experience. A jam-packed third segment of the fastest 3 hours of news begins right after John Bachman deals this edition of Newsmax Now.
Thank you, Ed. You may have heard about that plan from a venture capitalist from California to split the state into 6 separate states. Well, the latest reports say there might already be enough signatures on a referendum to get that on the November ballot. The plan gives Silicon Valley its own region along with Southern California and West California. Technology investor Tim Draper says he has 5 reasons for pushing the 6-way split. 1, it's about time California is properly represented by senators in Washington. Also encourages competition. Each sub-state could then start fresh. Number 4, decisions will be more relevant to the populations in that sub-state. Also, individuals can move freely between those states. But even if Draper his group does not get enough votes and then people vote in favor of it, Congress and the president would then have to approve the separation. Probably not going to happen. Also in California, in LA, Mayor Eric Garcetti says he is taking federal funds to shelter illegal immigrants. Garcetti says his city will work with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services as well as local organizations to accommodate children who cross the border in exchange for that federal money. The Los Angeles mayor says it's appropriate to send kids to L.A. because, quote, many of their parents are probably in the area already. This comes one day after the Obama administration deported approximately 40 women and children back to their native homeland of Honduras. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid says the U.S.-Mexico border is in fact secure. However, nearly 60,000 illegal immigrants, including many unaccompanied minors, have crossed the border in just the last 9 months. Earlier today, here on Newsmax TV, New York Congressman Peter King joined America's Forum and had this to say about the unsecured border.
Border is broken. Just common sense. If young kids are able to get across the border, And we can imagine, the drug dealers who would come across the border. We have to be concerned about terrorists who would come across the border.
King is one of the senior members on the, or has been a senior member on the House Homeland Security Committee. He went on to thank Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar for trying to work with the GOP on a solution to this problem. Cuellar is working with fellow Texan and Republican Senator John Cornyn on a bill that would speed up the removal of tens of thousands of illegals detained or arrested on the U.S.-Mexico border who are not from Mexico or Canada. I'm John Bachman. More news ahead in 30 minutes. Now here's Ed.
Remember, had we done comprehensive immigration reform, we wouldn't be having this issue. And everyone here, the border is secure. Martin Heinrich talked to the caucus today. He's a border state senator. He said he can say without any equivocation, the border is secure.
The immigration issue in this country continues to be framed in a very black and white manner, all too often missing what is a key to the protests over what is currently happening on the border. Americans unhappy with an illegal population, demanding that if people want to become a part of this country, they do so legally. And that goes for those who employ illegal workers. All right, now let's begin right there, talk some money, too. We welcome into MidPoint Research Associate for the Iowa Policy Project, seeking to add a different line to the discussion. Heather Gibney joins us today on MidPoint. Heather, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Heather, let's discuss exactly what Iowa is finding out here, because the numbers I think are rather revealing to some people when you talk about taxes. So first of all, tell us a little bit about the tax structure here and what you're saying is good for Iowans.
Well, the main thing that we found in the report that we just did on immigration in Iowa is that they are, in fact, an important part of the economy. And this goes for undocumented workers as well as documented. We found that overall they are paying taxes and contributing to the economy in an important way. For instance, all immigrants, regardless of their legal status, are paying taxes. They're paying sales taxes through the purchases that they buy. They're paying property taxes through either rent or the homes that they own. And they're paying federal and state excise taxes through things like gasoline. In addition to that, they are also, I think it's about 50 to 70% of undocumented workers are in fact contributing around $64 million to the Iowa economy. And, that's something that, that's a common misperception, is that these workers are not giving anything to the economy, and they're just coming here and working and they don't have to pay taxes. But,
okay, but it is fair to say, though, when you say all immigrants paying taxes, you're talking about the immigrants that you have found and the immigrants that you are using in part of the study. We can't definitively say that all immigrants pay taxes, can you?
Absolutely. I think that you can't say that. This is the best data that we have based on the data that we have. This is the estimates that we've come up with.
You have about 120,000 immigrants in Iowa. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's what the study found. Those coming here both legally and illegally make up about 4.5% of the state's economic output. So what are we talking about here in the kind of jobs that we're discussing here? Were you able to discern those as well?
What are you talking about? What types of occupations they're holding?
Yes.
Yeah. Predominantly, they're working in things like they're meat cutters, they're butchers, they're school teachers, they're computer programmers and housekeepers. They're essentially all over the economic spectrum as far as occupations go, but those were predominantly where they were most, where they were working the most.
All right, let's talk about some of the pushback you get on this here, and this is what a lot of people are talking about right now. There are those who will say it's fine and dandy that people are paying taxes, but they are still illegal in the country. And I think I mentioned that coming in, that they still want people to try to become a part of America legally before they become a part of the workforce. Did you find anything in your study there, or would you at least comment on that and at least understand that that's what a lot of the pushback is here from people?
Yeah, I totally understand that. The biggest thing that we found was, while they are illegal and still paying taxes, reform would change all of that, I think, to make people a little more understanding. If there was reform, undocumented immigrants would be able to go to school. They could get higher paying jobs. They would have more skills. They could invest in their own education. Employers would invest in their training and education because they would know they had a secure future here in the United States. In addition to reform, they would have higher wages, therefore they would pay more taxes. There's just a number of positive benefits that come out of reform. Dreamers, young adults that were brought here as children whose parents were undocumented and probably still are undocumented, they would be able to go to college. This is some place that they call home, but they still can't get the same opportunities as their peers. In addition to reform, that would allow, or it would kind of level the playing field for workers, because U.S. workers would no longer have to compete with undocumented workers who are not being paid what they should be because of wage theft or because of other employment abuses. So there's a lot of positive benefits to immigration.
Why don't we also get back here, and did your study look at the employers as well? Because a lot of the issue that is here is employers who are bringing illegal immigrant workers in, or illegal workers in, period, paying them in cash, basically not paying any taxes. There are a lot of people who will point to that the employers are just as big a part of this problem as anybody.
I wouldn't disagree with that. Our study didn't look specifically at employers and wage theft specifically, but at the Iowa Policy Project, we've looked at that before and found that the state is missing out on hundreds of millions of dollars because of that.
Was there any further part of your study that looked at where this has been and where it may go, as far as what happened in the past, what will happen in the future, to sort of balance this out here to what will happen with the immigration issue?
We haven't looked at immigration reform efforts in the past. We kind of just focused on what's happening right now and how they are positively impacting the economy.
What did you hear from, did you talk to Iowans themselves and ask the people who live there, or did you just look at the numbers of the immigrants?
We just looked at numbers.
What is the general consensus, though, in Iowa from the people who are there? Is the state of Iowa, the people there, the legal residents, are they happy with this? Are they okay with basically letting illegal workers continue to do this? Or give us a sense of what it's like in Iowa, because what you're talking about here with all this money could affect other states around the country as well, and a lot of people may stop and look twice.
We haven't spoke specifically to people about the immigration issue as well as reform, but what we do know is that Iowa seems to be an overall very welcoming state. So aside from the fact that we haven't gone out and spoken to people, from what I have seen, it's a very welcoming state.
What about you specifically? Do you have an opinion on it?
From the data that we have seen, my opinion is that it's good for the economy. Reform would take those people who are already living here, who are already contributing to the economy, and would allow them to contribute more, to acquire better skills, and to contribute more of themselves than they are able to right now.
So what do you think is, when you see people like this, and there's people out there who are saying stop them at the borders, send them back, let's not let anybody in, what's the opinion there of Iowans here along this line?
Specifically, I don't know the opinion of Iowans. I think that opinions probably vary in this state. I couldn't tell you exactly what everyone thinks.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
No, I'm just guessing what you're hearing, because you live there, you did the study. I'm just wondering what the people in Iowa themselves are thinking about this, because what you're talking about here is a tremendous amount of money coming into the state coffers. I would imagine that a lot of people in Iowa would be very happy to see that there's other people paying taxes.
I agree. I think that if maybe more Iowans were aware of the amount of money that they are bringing in, and hopefully they become more aware because of this study, that they would be even more supportive than they might currently be.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, it's something that we certainly have to look at. The amount of money that's coming in here is incredible. Heather Gibney, thanks so much for joining us with this survey, and at least we'll be able to pass these numbers on to our viewers.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We want to make sure that you understand a little bit more about this, because quite frankly, this is one state and this is what they're talking about. Much of what is going on here are those people who are saying that we need to make sure that the people who come to this country are legal. Let's stop right there. That is exactly what you're hearing at the border right now. It's not even necessarily, and I think that this is where the conversation perhaps gets convoluted from time to time. I don't think it's a matter of, and we can hear and see the different reports on the different individuals who are telling us it's more about making sure that people are here legally and they are doing it correctly and they are becoming part of America and not doing it illegally. However, when you look at some of the numbers here, if you allow undocumented immigrants to work legally in the U.S., there is a study out by Taxation and Economic Policy, which is ITEP. It is a nonpartisan research organization. Says that the country's 11.2 million undocumented immigrants already collectively contribute $10.6 billion in state and local taxes in 2010. That number could become $12.6 billion. Already, they're saying that if you allow another group in, you would have an estimated $2 billion annually that would come into the coffers. If allowed to work legally, the immigrants, the study says, would pay more in state income taxes as well as participate fully in federal, state, and local tax systems. That is something that we quite don't know from a lot of these studies because it's a full participation. Again, as I pointed out, and we all know there's a lot of things and a lot of jobs that still get paid out in cash, and there's no taxes paid there whatsoever. So what we're looking at here is the ability to be able to participate in the federal, state, local tax systems. That, a lot of the studies say, has to come from being a legal resident of the United States. So again, we look at Iowa, which right now is looking at $64 million in taxes to the state. That's the study. The other countries and the other states looking at anywhere from $1.5 to $2 billion. Americans still want the people who want to come here to America to be Americans. And I think that simply is what many people are going to stand on. They're fine that they contribute. They're fine that they put in some money into the coffers. And I got to tell you, they're probably fine, too, that the roads are going to work, everything's going to work better. But then they're going to ask where all that money is being spent as well. It is still a matter of follow the money, and the border crisis continues to grab people because I still believe that Americans will say, we are a nation of immigrants. Come in, be here, be part of it, but be a legal part of America and a legal citizen. I think that's pretty much where it all stands. Next up, Eric Holder and a lot more on MidPoint.
Meet Mary. She loves to shop online with her debit card. And so does Bill, an identity thief who stole Mary's identity, took over her bank accounts, and stole her hard-earned money. Unfortunately, millions of Americans just like you learn all it may take is a little misplaced information to wreak havoc on your life. This is identity theft, and no one helps stop it better than LifeLock. LifeLock offers the most comprehensive identity theft protection available. If Mary had LifeLock's bank account alerts, she may have been notified before it was too late. LifeLock's credit notification service is on the job 24/7. As soon as they detect a threat to your identity within their network, they will alert you, protecting you before the damage is done. LifeLock has the most comprehensive identity theft protection available, guarding your social security number, your money, your credit, even the equity in your home.
My years as a prosecutor taught me that we all need to protect ourselves from crime. In today's world, that includes identity theft. It's a serious problem. We all have to protect ourselves.
While identity theft can't be completely stopped, no one works harder to protect you than LifeLock. You even get a $1 million service guarantee. That's security no one can beat. You have so much to protect and nothing to lose. When you call LifeLock right now and get 60 days of identity theft protection risk-free. That's right, 60 days risk-free. Use promo code NOTME. Order now and get this document shredder to keep sensitive documents out of the wrong hands. A $29 value, free. Don't wait until you become the next victim. Call 1-800-918-3128 for 60 days of LifeLock identity theft protection risk-free and get a document shredder free. Use promo code NOTME. Call 1-800-918-3128 now.
Now on Newsmax TV, Mitt Romney for president again? Pundits say he could be the surprise comeback candidate for 2016. Watch The Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV. Go now to Newsmax TV.
Anybody in Washington in public office is going to get
hit with criticism. That's the nature of our democracy. That's the way it should work. And you know, one of the things that I know is true here in Allegheny County and true across the country is that they sure wish that some of this criticism was a little more constructive and that we were more focused on the lives of ordinary people.
Eric Holder has made history in more than a few places during his career. He's also been the recipient of numerous awards and also been the target of a number of investigations. He is now the 9th longest tenured Attorney General in the history of the United States and wields considerable power that can affect the lives of every American. But he finds himself now embroiled in a few controversies with those on all sides wondering if he has overstepped his reach and put himself in the middle of debates no AG should be involved in. Welcome to MidPoint. He is the co-author of a new book about the Attorney General entitled Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department. Also a Newsmax contributor and correspondent for National Review Online, John Funn joins us from New York. John, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Ed.
John, we look at this and there are those people who believe, as I noted, that Eric Holder has just overstepped himself. Is this something that he has done his entire career? Does this recent series of controversies just point to what Holder is, or is this completely out of character?
Well, his early career was very promising, and I talked to many people who worked with him in the Justice Department who said he was a solid prosecutor. But starting in the Clinton administration, there was a turn. He became the number 2, the deputy to Janet Reno, the Attorney General in Bill Clinton's second term. And apparently his task was to make sure that there were no new special prosecutors appointed, like Ken Starr and the others going after Clinton scandals. There were new prosecutors appointed. And under his watch, there were 2 very controversial decisions he had a big role in. He released 16 Puerto Rican terrorists, pardoned them, and these were people who had committed crimes, including murder. They hadn't even asked for a pardon, but they got a pardon, and there was a lot of speculation that was linked to Hillary Clinton's run for the Senate in New York, which has a large Puerto Rican community. And the second thing was the infamous pardon of Mark Rich, the international fugitive from justice who had been accused of dealing with Iran when Iran was a sworn enemy of the United States and was holding American embassy personnel hostage.
John, is there a feeling from some people, and what you're talking about, and when you talk about political connections as well, that Eric Holder is someone who is easily swayed by political influences?
All I can tell you is that an Attorney General has 2 jobs. On the one hand, he has to enforce the president's prosecutorial priorities. That's fine. That's why we elect presidents with different priorities. On the other hand, he has to uphold the rule of law to make sure that the law isn't used as a club to punish enemies and reward friends. At every point when there's been a choice between going with the Obama administration and going with something that is highly political, he seems to have veered, highly in accord with the rule of law, he seems to have veered in the direction of the Obama administration and politicizing the Justice Department.
The comment that he made about racial animus, in writing the book and then leading up to this, did you get the thought process that this was in line with how he has felt throughout his career, that this is something that really is embodied in him?
Not in his early career. He was raised in New York City, won scholarships to very good high schools, said he was in a very middle-class neighborhood, never experienced any racial discrimination in the 50s and 60s. This attitude seems to have come, I think, partly because of his marriage. He married a civil rights activist from the South who had deep grievances from that period of Jim Crow, and he seems to have embodied the race-conscious mentality of many radicals inside the Justice Department. I mean, he recently made the most astonishing statement. Even though the Supreme Court has said that affirmative action is a temporary program and we should look towards the day when we can go to Martin Luther King's vision of when you're judged by the content of your character rather than your color of your skin, he has said affirmative action should last forever. It's going to be a permanent part of American life. And he actually rhetorically asked, I don't ask when affirmative action ends, I ask when it will begin.
John, were you able to uncover, at least get a good sense of what the people in the Justice Department feel about Eric Holder, those who are close to him, those who work with him, and those who are able to deal with the man on a day-to-day basis as to what kind of a person he is and how he's running that department?
Well, there's a lot of chaos in the department, a lot of conflicting signals. A lot of lawyers are unhappy with the constant zigs and zags of policy. On the other hand, Holder has a very strong cadre of loyalists that he has appointed, and they believe in him very strongly, and have stood by him. But the best way to look at how the Justice Department is run is to look at how outside observers have looked at it. The Supreme Court, Holder has to go and argue the administration's many expansive views of executive power, like Obamacare and like recess appointments. And 13 times in the last 2 years, 13 times the Supreme Court has unanimously struck down Holder's position on executive power and overreach. And that has included the 2 Obama appointees in the Supreme Court, Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor.
Is it not fair to say, you used the word overreach, and again, this is a word that we have been using for a couple of weeks here now, certainly in light of what the president has done and how the Supreme Court has ruled against him in a couple of cases. Certainly the NLRB case comes to mind right away. Is this just simply endemic of this administration, and no matter whether it's President Obama or whomever, and certainly to Holder that basically takes care of what the president wants, that it is a thinking that we can overreach, they can't stop us?
Well, presidents have enormous power, and they're always tempted to become frustrated with Congress and to try to circumvent Congress. Richard Nixon most famously did that, and he was called the imperial president by many of the people who are Holder's defenders today. Well, Holder and Obama have basically become an imperial attorney general and an imperial president, but the liberals are supporting them. Rather than the rule of law, they seem to be celebrating the rule of men. And it was wrong with Nixon, and it's wrong with Obama, and I think the courts are coming to agree on that.
When we talk about Holder and what he has done at this point, give us a sense, if you will, of many of the decisions he's made. Of course, he's come under tremendous fire for a lot of these decisions. What is the sort of legacy that a lot of his decisions are going to leave behind? Because I think that's what people are now beginning to look at. We always look at what a Supreme Court and a president does, but now I think a lot of people are thinking, what is this Attorney General going to leave behind in his wake?
A lot of, I think, abusive behavior towards American businesses, forcing them into settlements for crimes that are dubiously argued or prosecuted. There's an enormous concern on the part of many civil liberties groups about the Justice Department. One of the cases they lost in the Supreme Court 9-0 was Jones versus U.S., in which the Justice Department was arguing that it should have the power to plant a GPS tracking device on your car or the car of any of your viewers without any court order, without any search warrant, without any evidence a crime had been committed. It seems that whether it comes to civil liberties or whether it comes to separation of powers, this administration knows very few boundaries and constantly wants to explore new ones.
Is there a sense that you get, and again, talking to people around Washington as well, that this time he really overstepped himself and there was no reason for him to put himself into this specific discussion, and that we come back again to that racial animus statement that he made?
Well, look, I think the politics of distraction enter into this. I'm not saying that there isn't racial prejudice in the country. Of course there is. But the criticism against Holder is based on legal and procedural and professional grounds, and with very strong specifics, as we cite in our book. For someone to yell race in a crowded political theater is a form of distraction. It means you don't want to deal with the real issues. Why were you overturned by the Supreme Court unanimously 13 times in 2 years? So you mention race and hope that basically everybody chases that rabbit down a hole rather than something that you've really done.
It's interesting, too, how the president has not come out and said anything in response to this. He has remained rather quiet. How did that strike you, that the president has not really said anything in response to all of this controversy?
Well, ever since President Obama got into trouble by questioning a Cambridge cop's treatment of a black professor at Harvard, he's been very leery of making racial pronouncements. I think Eric Holder has been his spokesman on racial issues, saying what the president really thinks, acting as his heat shield for political criticism. If you hear Eric Holder, you're hearing Barack Obama. It's just the president, I think, prefers to have it told through the Attorney General rather than himself.
We talked about the 9th longest tenured Attorney General in history. Where do you think that he will stand right now?
I can tell you right now that Eric Holder will serve until January 20th, 2017. That's the day Barack Obama leaves office. And the reason is very simple. It would be almost impossible to get someone confirmed in the Republican Senate that may come starting in November. Certainly too late to confirm someone this time, this year. And that would be a very awkward situation for President Obama to have to go through a confirmation battle. Secondly, if Eric Holder were to leave the Justice Department, he would lose all the protections the Justice Department affords him in fighting subpoenas and congressional demands for his testimony. He would have a new occupation if he left as Attorney General. And that occupation would be permanent witness. I don't think he wants to be that.
And the occupation will be fighting subpoenas and having lawyers involved in your life for the next 30, 40 years and beyond.
Permanent witness.
Permanent witness, a very good way to put it. John, you put it all right in perspective. Thank you so much for joining us, John. It's a pleasure. We'll do it again.
Pleasure.
All right, John Fund joining us. And again, Eric Holder makes his statements. He made a few more in the last couple of days, and people are wondering if the president will say anything. I think he said it very well. I don't think the president will say much at all at this point. Still ahead, the American automaker that gives no one a really good reason to trust them, no matter how many times they keep asking you to trust them. It's coming up next, right here on MidPoint.
Hi, I'm Jean, and this is my one and only Henry. We just love scouring flea markets for special treasures. But with my type 2 diabetes, we now spend all the time at the pharmacy. With Medcare, I don't have to. They deliver everything I need right to my door with free shipping. Plus, Medcare takes private policies, Medicaid, even my Medicare. Sleep apnea machines, nebulizers. Medcare has all the finest medical supplies. The best part, Medcare saves us money. Medcare allows us the time to do the things we love. Medcare, we deliver a better life.
Do you sleep too hot while your partner sleeps too cool? Do you struggle to sleep at the right temperature? Now Sleep Number has a solution that's as revolutionary as its beds. Introducing the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer. The amazing Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer allows both of you to select your ideal temperature for better sleep. The Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer works with any mattress brand. It features active air technology, which evenly distributes air to heat and cool each side to the temperature you prefer for head-to-toe comfort. Call or click now for this free $50 savings card and catalog.
My husband and I both prefer different temperatures. He likes to have his side of the bed a little bit warmer, and I like to have mine a little bit cooler, and we are finally sleeping better together.
After sleeping on a dual temp layer, I find that I have such a restful night's sleep that when I wake up in the morning, I am energized and I'm ready for the day.
All night long, you can each enjoy sleep at a temperature that perfectly matches what your body needs for comfortable sleep, so you can sleep better together. In a research study, 75% reported poor sleep because of their sleeping temperature. That's because your body's temperature naturally fluctuates at night. But with the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer, you can sleep comfortably warm or cool. And because the revolutionary Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer helps solve an important sleep problem, it was selected as a very innovative product by Good Housekeeping. Remember, the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer can be added to any mattress brand, so everyone can enjoy sleeping better at the perfect temperature. Call or click now.
Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now for a free $50 savings card and catalog with price list. For your peace of mind, the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer comes with a 100-night in-home trial. Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now. That's 1-800-317-5283 for your free $50 savings card and catalog.
Attention parents and grandparents of young children. Gerber Life is accepting applications for their affordable Grow-Up Plan. The Grow-Up Plan gives your child $10,000 in whole life insurance protection now, then doubles automatically to $20,000 later at no extra cost. Free information will be sent to parents and grandparents who call now. Help give your child a head start for just pennies a day. Don't wait. Call now for free information.
Call 1-800-417-7939 or go to growupplan.com.
I'm John Bachman. Welcome to this Newsmax Now update. Alex Tickleman, remember her, the high-priced escort accused of administering a lethal dose of heroin that killed a Google executive? Well, she was arraigned today in the California courtroom. The 26-year-old model and escort is charged with manslaughter as well as possession of drugs and solicitation of prostitution. Tickleman entered the courtroom in handcuffs and sporting a red jumpsuit. The Silicon Valley call girl remained quiet during the proceedings, except when she answered questions from the judge on 2 occasions. Tickleman's attorney requested that she be released until her trial, which was denied by the Santa Cruz judge. She is being held on a $1.5 million bail. She's pleaded not guilty. The next scheduled hearing is set for later in October. And Americans will no longer have to worry about being taxed for using the internet. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill voted to permanently ban taxes on internet usage yesterday. The voice vote approval will now be on its way to the Senate. if it gets approved by the Senate, we won't have to worry about those taxes. This deal, or the bill, does deal only with internet access and the permanent internet tax, internet freedom tax, not internet sales tax, which you might see on your bills. Over the next few years, the ban has been extended to 3 times, or has been extended 3 times rather, and was set to expire on November 1st. Now on to another congressional agenda item, the Highway Trust Fund. Yesterday, House members approved a short-term fix to the nearly dry funding for transportation fund. Congress overwhelmingly voted in favor of approving the solution. This fund supplies states with money to build and maintain bridges, roads, and mass transit services. I'm John Bachman. We're back with more news in 30 minutes. Now here's Ed.
All right, John, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and make some news now and give you some news. We look at our sister shows here on the Newsmax TV network. We have America's Forum with J.D. Hayworth that precedes us here, and the Steve Malzberg Show that follows us here. So let's get to what they had to say today. And the first one is Representative Peter King. There was a very special guest today on America's Forum. They were talking about the border issue. Again, this is something that we have talked about many, many times here. And Representative Peter King is he's a Republican from New York. He's also a member of the House Committee on Homeland Security. And he basically, again, went after Harry Reid and talked about it here and said that Harry Reid's denial of the border issue, and Harry Reid has said that the border is secure. So Peter King is saying right here that this denial of the border issue is just impeding any progress whatsoever.
First of all, the border is broken. Just common sense. If young kids are able to get across the border, we can imagine, the drug dealers who can come across the border. We have to be concerned about terrorists who would come across the border. And, this is a complicated issue. It's complex. No one says there's easy answers. But in an issue like this, you need people of good faith and good intelligence to come together. And when you have someone like Harry Reid denying that there's a problem, saying that the border is secure, then it makes it impossible. It makes it impossible to have any progress because, right now we do have the Democrats controlling the Senate. And if we're going to get any meaningful legislation or make any meaningful progress, we have to have a Democratic leader who does not live in his own alternative universe.
It is still something that Harry Reid has said. He has said that the border is secure, which I'm sure that many people on both sides of the aisle would not be very thrilled to hear and also probably would disagree with as well. All right, then on the Steve Malzberg Show yesterday, former Missouri Congressman Todd Akin, he is worried. He's worried that Republicans are moving away from electing conservatives.
This is what concerns me. In the Wall Street Journal, Karl Rove and other Republicans saying, look, Akin proves you can't elect a conservative. Now, that's just flat out doesn't make any sense. Look at the record. I'm 24 years a hardcore conservative
in the House.
In the House, 12 years in the House, 12 years in the State House,
right.
Reelected by tremendous majorities all the time. My record proves conservatives can get elected. And they're saying, well, you can't elect conservatives, therefore, they're using me as an as the proof, therefore, they want to ignore the Republican primary elections in various states, and they want to select rather than elect their candidate.
We thank the shows, the Steve Malzberg Show at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, also America's Forum that begins at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. It's all right here on the Newsmax TV network, and we fill in right between them at noon to 3 o'clock Eastern Time every day. Now let's step down for another American moment.
It was intended to take the roar out of America's roaring 20s, but instead its passage divided the nation and began an era of bootleggers, speakeasies, and rum-running gangsters. When ratified in 1919, the 18th Amendment to the Constitution outlawed the manufacturing, transportation, and sale of intoxicating liquors. Consequently, organized crime was quick to step up and quench the thirst of an eager nation. The Volstead Act gave federal agencies the legal authority to enforce prohibition, but with an average of only 30 enforcement agents per state, the illegal liquor flowed freely. By 1925, in New York City alone, authorities estimated over 100,000 illegal bars were thriving, with customers consisting of friends, neighbors, and lawmakers alike. Still, some law enforcement became famous fighting the booze trade. One was Elliot Ness. As a top agent of the Bureau of Prohibition, Ness led a team of men known as the Untouchables. Tough and incorruptible, they brought down Chicago bootlegger and mobster Al Capone. But bowing to public pressure, in his 1932 presidential campaign, Franklin Roosevelt endorsed the repeal of prohibition. It was later reported, with the Depression in full swing and national morale at rock bottom, then President Roosevelt remarked, "I think we could all do with a beer." With the passage of the 21st Amendment on December 5, 1933, prohibition was officially repealed, making the 18th Amendment the only amendment in the U.S. Constitution repealed by the passage of another. Still, even with the repeal of prohibition, many states chose to remain dry, the longest running of which was Mississippi, who didn't repeal their self-imposed prohibition until 1966. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American Moment.
Can you really lose weight without changing your lifestyle? LaToya Q did. In fact, in just 5 months, she lost nearly 2 pounds a week without changing the way she dieted or exercised.
I lost 36 pounds and I went down 4 dress sizes.
Like so many people, LaToya didn't want to change her lifestyle to lose weight. Instead, she decided to take America's #1 selling diet pill, Lipozene.
People kept asking me, "Are you you have to be exercising? You're really you just don't want to tell us what you're doing." I was like, "No, I don't have time to go to a gym. I just took Lipozene and I started seeing results immediately."
Lipozene has now sold over 20 million bottles. That's because Lipozene really works. And to prove it, we conducted our very own double-blind clinical study where all we asked people to do was take Lipozene. And by just taking Lipozene, they lost weight. But here's where it gets really exciting. These people were not asked to change their diet or exercise. And 78% of the weight they lost was pure body fat. Not water, fat.
I'm almost back down to my high school weight, so I'm really loving that.
And for even faster results, you can try Lipozene with moderate diet and exercise.
Feels great to have a six-pack. I didn't think I would have it at my age.
I lost 7 inches off of my waist and I lost 2 dress sizes and I feel amazing.
Now you can join the millions of people who have lost weight with Lipozene by trying it risk-free for only $29.95. Lipozene is guaranteed to help you lose weight or your money back.
Lipozene, it works.
But wait, call in the next 10 minutes and we'll double your order absolutely free. Plus, we'll even pay for your shipping. But that's still not all. To celebrate selling over 20 million bottles of Lipozene, the company will give you a free bottle of Metabo Up with your order. That's a $20 value free. But you must call right now because this exclusive free offer is not available in stores.
Call 1-800-509-9436. That's 1-800-509-9436.
My name is Ed Berliner. I'm a host and a news anchor here at Newsmax. This country is desperate for a new voice to speak to that new generation that wants to know it all. Don't give me just half the story. Don't give me a piece of it. Let me get it all. Every single day, when people come to Newsmax, they're going to get an entire story. A new voice, a new generation. Newsmax TV.
Super careful because they're German manufacturers.
Okay. All right, we got you. I'll be to you in about 45 seconds.
All right, 45 seconds.
Thank you, Lauren. You got it.
This should have never happened. It is unacceptable. Our customers need to know that they can count on our cars, our trucks, and most importantly, our word. Because of the actions of a few people and the willingness of others to condone bureaucratic processes that avoided accountability, we let these customers down.
Boy, did they ever. Just when you thought it was safe to go back to the dealer's lot and place your trust in General Motors, surprise! Welcome back to MidPoint. Read and watch her at laurenfix.com. See her appearing across the country seeking to make U.S. a smarter auto nation, and also here on MidPoint. The car coach, Lauren Fix, joins us once again today. Hello, Lauren.
Hello, Ed.
Here we are again. We gather at the altar of recall. It's happening. We'll talk about that momentarily. But here we have General Motors now going in front of Congress in a couple of days. Actually, I think it's tomorrow. And they are going to, again, try and make some sense of everything that's gone on here. But again, Lauren, there are still federal prosecutors involved. There's still information coming out that shows that GM lied. So, I mean, and they're still selling cars. Please make sense of this to me.
Well, it appears that their general counsel, Mr. Milliken, will be on Capitol Hill along with Mary Barra and the CEO of Delphi. Now, Delphi made the switches. This should be very interesting, and I will be listening very intently, because the fact is Mr. Milliken claims as I say, the excuse du jour is, I didn't know about this till January. So that seems to be everybody's story. Like, nothing happened before January, when the truth is this started coming out in 2007. And anyone that had a claim that was more than $5 million against GM, those cases that are already closed would have to go to the general counsel. So conveniently, and on this we don't have data for yet, but we'll have it tomorrow, that anything under $5 million is handled by the underlings of Mr. Milliken. So Mr. Milliken says that he was unaware of all of these legal cases that are closed, and guess what? They now have the opportunity to open them under the Volukas report and under what Kenneth Feinberg is doing.
So if we look at this, and there are states now involved, at least a dozen states are investigating General Motors right now. According to reports, the state officials say the effort is likely to focus on whether GM broke consumer protection laws. All right, you're very familiar with these, dealing with the automakers. Right. Did they indeed break consumer protection laws?
It appears as though they have. I mean, from a legal standpoint, it's always going to be different in the court of law than it is in reality. But for you and I as consumers, they did. They did not let us know that this was going on. They kept it under wraps, and there was no consistent pattern, which there was. And what's interesting about the whole thing is now even the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, is getting involved. There's going to be a lot of prosecution involved, not just on a state level, but on a federal level. And in addition, Claire McCaskill, who is running this GM basically whole hearing, has said that she now wants to bring the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration back in front of the panel, and I think she should. And the fact is, they got off scot-free by saying, oh, we didn't get enough data from GM. The fact is, they did get enough data, and over the years, 3 different people had noticed spikes in data with airbags not deploying when ignition switches were in the off position. They got data, they had complaints from consumers, they brought it to whoever their senior bosses were, and it conveniently disappeared. Now, I still say, somewhere in the mix, Mr. Stephen Ratner, who did know about this, and it is in the Volukas report, did nothing about it. Listen, when the government gets involved in private business and you see something like this going on, there's a lot of people that either dropped the ball, chose not to get involved, whatever it is. But the bad part of this is you and I as consumers had no idea until now.
All right, as consumers then, is there really any reason whatsoever for consumers right now to have confidence if they go out, try to buy a General Motors car, knowing that things have been taken care of, if they also know at the same time that this investigation goes back to 1999 perhaps, all the way to the 2009 bankruptcy, and they know that there is a consistent level of lying that was done in this company for so long?
Well, I think that's a personal choice. I've had that conversation multiple times over the last few months with people who have said, you know what, I will never go back to that brand. And other people have said, you know what, I've been a GM person my whole life. They've produced good quality cars for me personally, and I'm going to stick with it. You know, I think they make some really phenomenal product, especially when it comes to the Corvette, which I'm a huge fan of. But in other cases, I mean, I do have a little bit of doubt in my mind as well. But every manufacturer has had recalls. And I think it's up to you as a consumer to be proactive. If you get a technical service bulletin in the mail, if you're contacted by the dealer, you bring your vehicle in and you get it repaired and you're satisfied, then that's up to the consumer to make their choices. There's a lot of great products on the marketplace, and GM does make some really good products. And I'm expecting some big changes now that we have Johan Dinesh, who left Audi, went to Infiniti, and conveniently last Friday is now employed by Cadillac. So I'm looking forward to some real positive things coming out of Cadillac in the near future.
Very briefly, BMW recalled 1.6 million 3 Series cars for airbag problems. We've talked about the airbags before. Everybody's running scared right now, aren't they?
I tell you what, if I had a manufacturing business that was making cars and car components, I'd be very concerned. If there was any question about people coming back, a flow of consumers about a same issue, you're better off making the recall. I mean, Scion had a recall on a trunk latch that was made of plastic and they're replacing it with metal because they're concerned about it wearing. Okay, is that a serious issue? No, but who would want to be caught in that? And no one wants to be the next Toyota, the next GM. So BMW is being very proactive. They make quality cars, and a lot of the German manufacturers are super proactive. Tanaka made their airbags, and they were produced here in the U.S. They were stored in a warehouse that had moisture, and they were actually discharging. The hard part about this is the metal framing around it was causing metal shards to come out at consumers. So in this case, it's very serious. And in this case, if you have a 3 Series, go to the dealer, get it taken care of. It's not going to cost you anything.
30 seconds. A Milwaukee attorney says he's won a settlement in his Lemon lawsuit against Tesla Motors. The beginning of the end for Tesla?
Yes. Well, I've said when it comes to Tesla, the federal government has said they're not going to allow them to use their sales model nationwide, which is what Elon Musk wanted. But this gentleman that's in Wisconsin had no Tesla dealer nearby, which is one of the complaints that I had. There is no brick and mortar stores. And that they've actually, the 12 little Rangers that can come out, they weren't able to make it. So they had to flatbed the vehicle to Chicago to the closest repair center. And it went back enough times that they actually won on a lemon law. And I have to say, that's a win for consumers to know that just because you sell it in a mall setting doesn't...
Any flashlight can throw a beam, but not even this floodlight is bright enough to light up a room. Now there's the Torchlight from Bell & Howell, the high-tech portable light that's really big on brightness. Look, ordinary flashlights just have a narrow beam, but the Torchlight has a brighter, wider beam that brilliantly lights up the entire room. Even when the power goes out, you won't be left in the dark because its 28 ultra-bright LEDs give you over 100,000 hours of bright, reliable light. It's like having nature's own sunlight at your fingertips. Its high-powered magnetic base lets you securely attach it to any metal surface to give you a steady, bright light that brilliantly lights up your entire work area. It's like having an extra pair of hands. It's so powerful it can lift up to 2.5 pounds. And with its bright light, there's no easier way to quickly pick up dropped nails and screws. And look, the Torchlight is also a flashlight. Its 5 white LEDs give you a clear, bright light to easily see wherever you go. The sturdy base keeps the Torchlight in place exactly where you want it. And the articulating arm has 6 preset positions that let you tilt the light an incredible 180 degrees to give you total lighting coverage. Use it at your computer, as a table lamp, or to light up those dark, unlit areas. Better yet, with the built-in hook, you can hang it anywhere and rotate it 360 degrees to give you light wherever you need it, while its rugged construction makes it impact resistant and weatherproof too. And now the Bell & Howell Torchlight is yours for just $10. But wait, call now and we'll double your order. That's 2 for the price of 1. Just pay separate processing and handling. Order your Torchlight now.
To order your Torchlight and receive a second one free, have your credit card ready and call toll-free 1-800-936-0400. That's 1-800-936-0400.
Are you prepared for the coming geopolitical storm that will radically alter the military, political, and economic landscape as we know it? Events unfolding within the next 6 months will have consequences for all Americans and inescapable worldwide economic impact. Langley Intelligence Group Network. LIGNET is a globally recognized intelligence resource with a senior advisory board consisting of former CIA analysts, national security officers, and presidential advisors. LIGNET's seasoned intelligence and security experts have now issued a global forecast that is must-reading for those who need to be in the know. This in-depth analysis arms individuals, investors, corporations, and governments with the tools to position themselves for success in this rapidly changing environment. Sign up now and access the LIGNET Global Forecast for just $1. Receive 30 days of full access to LIGNET's penetrating global analysis. Join LIGNET today. Go to www.lignet.com/global.
Life can hit you with the unexpected. Forcing you to make difficult decisions. Leaving you feeling helpless. You don't have to lose your home. It's time to take control. The National Foundation for Credit Counseling can help. The NFCC is a nonprofit organization that has been providing quality financial counseling and education for 60 years. Our national network of community-based member agencies have helped millions of consumers with foreclosure prevention. Seek advice from our certified housing counselors today. Call us or visit mortgagehelpnow.org. Real solutions for real people.
Last chance for Midpoint. Let's go ahead and head to New York City right now where Steve Mosberg sits in that chair. He prepares himself. He readies. He is right dead square in the center of Manhattan, surveying all that he sees, knowing all, telling all. How'd I do so far? Am I script working good?
Yeah, you got you just like I wrote it, my friend. Just like I wrote it.
Hey, you got Ken Griffey Sr. coming in today, huh?
Ken Griffey Sr., who, on the day after the All-Star game, he was an All-Star MVP back in 1980, three-time All-Star, two-time World Series champ, and, of course, the father of Ken Griffey Jr. I have to legitimize. I keep telling my son that in my other career, when I was covering the Yankees back in the 80s, Ken Griffey Jr., who was my son's age at the time, now about 14, used to be in the clubhouse throwing the ball off the wall, and he said, "Get out of here, that never happened." Well, I'm going to ask Ken Griffey Sr. To document that it actually did happen.
These kids don't think any of this stuff happens. They never believe the dad was actually in the locker room. I mean, I still keep telling people about the double number of Super Bowls I've been to. "Oh, you weren't there, you were too young." I said, "Yeah, I was about 4 years old, I think, when I went to my first one. I got rained on." At least that's what it felt like sometimes, all those games we covered. Hey, listen, Harry Reid's playing a heck of a game here right now. The borders are secure. Boy, you gotta love that. There's Harry coming right out, giving us the hard answers, boy.
Yeah, the borders are secure. The Koch brothers are un-American. We can't have 5 white guys, white men, determining women's health and birth control. He was referring to the men on the Supreme Court. I guess he forgot that Clarence Thomas is black. I mean, I could go on down the list. Why should I save a kid with cancer when kids, when people in my district are furloughed and have their own problems? I mean, the hits just keep on coming from this guy, and it doesn't matter. It does. The Negro dialect, whatever he said about Obama, doesn't matter, because when you're a Democrat, you're insulated and you could say anything you want, and the media won't care. They'll just give you a pass.
We have to feel the same thing is happening. At least Eric Holder may have to feel the exact same thing, that he can get away with pretty much whatever he wants to say, and at this point, no one will really question him much on it, because the left will say, "Oh, well, wait a minute, the right is just calling it racial animus, and they're just upset about it because they know it's true." I mean, it's back and forth constantly, but it is sort of amazing how it got very little coverage from the alphabet networks.
Well, here's the deal. I could sit here and say that of the 95% of black vote that voted for Obama twice, some of them voted that way because they don't like white people. And whether it's one person or 2 people or 1 million of them, I'd be right. So what is the Attorney General of the United States trying to prove by saying, "Well, some people who don't like Obama, race has something to do with it"? Of course. So what does that mean? I mean, he's just, and a man in his position to be putting this forth and claiming, "Oh, we're also racist." It's dangerous, it's beneath the office, and it doesn't mean anything.
Do you think he's just carrying the water for the president?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I mean, the president does it himself too. Well, when he says maybe they never did, the George Bush did a lot of things, and maybe they just don't like me. I wonder why. The same. Enough. America's sick of it. The act is tired. It's old. Stop it. Be president. Be attorney general. But that isn't going to happen.
All right. Tell us what you got coming up on the show today.
Well, we're going to kick it off, actually, with Ken Griffey Sr. He'll be here momentarily. And we got Bill Donahue of the Catholic League. The Pope came out with some remarks about immigration and the kids who are here in this country. The left interpreted it one way. The right interpreted it another way. He's going to set us straight. And he also has some harsh words, I believe, for Michael Savage, radio talk show host, and what Savage had to say about the Pope. So all that, and David Horowitz, and my friend, the great writer for the Washington Times, Charlie Hurt, and more. So it's all coming up.
All right, and the road to the White House continues today. Ryan Williams, Senior Vice President, FP1 Strategies, former spokesman for Governor Mitt Romney. He's going to be there at 4:30 Eastern Time today, correct?
Yeah, we'll see if what the prospects of a Romney candidacy might look like. He says he's not running, but There's been lots of chatter about it.
I don't know. We'll have to see. We still got a long way to go on that one. That is the Steve Malzberg Show coming up right after us here on MidPoint. Steve, thanks a lot, buddy. Have a great show.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you.
All right, don't forget, America's Forum, 9 o'clock Eastern Time every morning right here on the Newsmax TV network. We're at noon Eastern Time. Steve Malzberg comes back every day, 3 o'clock Eastern Time right here with his show. We got it all covered for you right here on the Newsmax TV network. Rock on, true believers. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you right back here tomorrow again for another edition of the show that questions everything. This is MidPoint.